I will call the North Smithfield School Committee meeting of August 17, 2021 to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Lombardi.
Present.
Mrs. Mayo.
Here.
Mrs. Vada.
Here.
Mr. Cannell.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here. We have a quorum. Let's move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. If I may just move on to a couple of housekeeping matters. The consent agenda is before us. Does anybody have anything that they want to pull off the consent agenda?
Chair.
Yes.
I do not want to pull it off the consent agenda, but as in June, I would like to congratulate Nathaniel Carden-Proshniak on his Eagle Scout Award. It's a major accomplishment in a young man's life, I should say, and it does not come easily. Long hours, hard work, commitment, dedication. So congratulations to Nathaniel.
Seeing no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. So, Superintendent, I just want to be clear here. So you're going to do a presentation and then we're going to have a discussion about the face mask policy. Is that correct? Correct. Okay, move forward.
I have no idea if this camera is catching me. Have my face. I can see it on my little screen on this side. Sorry, I am very much multitasking tonight. So thank you very much. One of the things that I wanted to do, and I had suggested to the school committee, is to give an overview of our COVID and safety protocols that we will be going into the fall, because that really will inform the masking discussion that will be coming up afterwards. So our stress this year is to be open full in person. So we are not intending on doing hybrid. We're not intending on distance learning. We're not intending on Mondays, distance learning Mondays. We want everybody full in person. Ms. Arnold, our assistant superintendent, has been going through our RIDECast, our assessment score data from last year, and we did not show the gains last year as we have in previous years. So we all feel very important that the kids need to be in school all the time as much as possible. We also have additional resources to help student academic and social enrichment. Now, these are part of the federal ESSER funds that we have used to create summer enrichment programs. We will be creating additional after-school clubs and activities and other programs. We want, especially after a year and a half of COVID, of some isolation, to have kids in full, having fun, with clubs, activities, and many things that they can do. We also are dedicated to maintaining a safe and healthy environment for our students to keep kids safe and mostly keep kids in the classroom. So we have requirements that we have met from the Rhode Island Department of Health regarding school opening and safety. So a couple of things that I would like to go over with you on this one. Last year was a real pain to the daily attestations, the entry tickets at NSES, the Google Forms to fill out. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to send to all parents a single attestation form that will basically say, you won't send your kids to school if they're sick. You know, that is going to be our primary screening for COVID, is to not have kids come to school. So if a child has fever or chills, a new cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, muscle, body ache, sore throat, diarrhea, honest nausea or vomiting, they really should be home, you know, COVID or not, but this will be our primary means of screening. The other thing that we're going to be more equipped to do this year is to do screenings in school. So we have hired a couple of CNAs, certified nurse assistants, to work with our nurses. We will have the capacity not only to do the rapid Binex testing that we did last year for the athletes, but we can do this for any student, any teacher at any time if they feel there's a danger of exposure to a positive case, somebody with COVID. Additionally, we're going to have the ability to do the PCR screens in school. All right, now both of these screenings, in fact, I should say the Binex now, the Binex screening, our athletes at the high school, they actually conducted the screening on themselves. It's just open a packet, couple of, 5 swabs of one nostril, halfway up, 5 in the other one, put it down, wait 15 minutes, and then it will show whether it's a negative or positive for COVID. The PCR test, of which many of you are familiar with, whether you had it yourself or you had to bring your child to be tested, we can do that in school. So one of the things that we will need, though, is a consent form. So if we have a consent form from the parents, we can do the rapid screening, we can do a PCR test. So if a student comes down to the health office, oh, miss, I have a headache, my throat hurts, and they take the temperature, there's a fever. If we have the consent, the nurse she would check in, run the PCR test right there. And then we would send that to the lab. We would call you, the child would go home, and we should have the results within 24 hours as to whether it's a positive or negative for COVID. We're also following every other protocol that we have been doing, that the kids are used to: the hand washing, the coughing into your sleeve. We have our cleaning and disinfecting protocols in place. We have specialized equipment. All of our custodians have received additional training on this equipment and on cleaning and sterilizing in a COVID environment. We had to assure the Department of Health that our ventilation system is maximized. Now, last summer, in preparation for the opening of schools, we had invested $300,000 in the ventilation systems, primarily at NSES, but also through this building and through the high school. The baseline, the benchmark from the Department of Health was 2 to 3 air exchanges per hour. Our schools are all equipped to do 4 to 6 air exchanges per hour. So we're exceeding the basic requirements that are put out from the Department of Health for a safe indoor environment. The other thing the Department of Health would, absolutely would like us to do is to promote vaccinations. And yet, a couple of days ago, I sent out that we're running a joint vaccination clinic with Woonsocket, that it will start tomorrow, run over a 5-week period. Walk-ins are welcome. You can sign up. You can choose a time. It's between 3 and 9 o'clock. 3 or 9 or 3 to 7? 3 to 7, I think. Anyway, it's in the email. And And the thing is that I also put into that letter, which was concerning, because last week I did receive an email from the Department of Health and the Department of Education that North Smithfield, our school district, was designated as a vaccination cold spot. Now, a cold spot is where the vaccination rate is below 50% for fully vaccinated. Within our district, we have, of the students who are eligible to be vaccinated, we're at a 40% rate. So we have been identified by the Department of Health as we have some work to do. We'll also be maintaining as much as we can our stable pods. We'll keep kids together, and that will be PK through 6. And throughout, we're going to do everything we can to maintain that 3 feet or greater distancing where possible. And then the last component is masking. And I put on here, the extent is to be decided. Now, looking at quarantines. So we will have positive cases, unfortunately. We will have to quarantine. The quarantining isn't going to be the same as it was last year. Number one, first of all, the Department of Health is giving districts a choice between several different models for quarantining. The 14-day, the 10 days, or the one that we're going to choose is 7 days. So if we have a positive case and that person needs to quarantine, the quarantine would be for 7 days with a return on the 8th day. A PCR test on day 5. If the PCR test on day 5 comes back negative, then PCR test will be taken day 5. When that comes back negative, the student can return on day 8. So we're trying to choose the least invasive quarantine model that the Department of Health has put out. Now, we also will have probable cases. We had that last year. That is where, on the slide, in the absence of a more likely diagnosis, so if it's not seasonal allergies, if it's not, well, I can tell you, I've had since last September a constant cold and postnasal drip. All right. Under the COVID rules here, I should be quarantined. And I actually had myself tested a number of times. And so it is allergies. So if it's not allergies and somebody has multiple symptoms, that person should quarantine. Now, again, we do have the ability for rapid testing. So the way it breaks down, again, from the Department of Health, if somebody is vaccinated and they have a couple of these symptoms, it's most likely not going to be COVID. It's most likely not going to be a need to quarantine. The recommendation is testing, because it is possible with a vaccination, you could still have a breakthrough case. You could still carry it. You may not be terribly sick, but you can still transmit it. All right, but we will have the ability to do rapid testing to rule out a COVID positive. We did have a number of situations last year in which we did have probable cases. A student was sent home and the family did not want to test. So in that case, we have to assume that the probable case is a positive case. And without testing, without a screening, the quarantine length is 10 days. I should add, for the vaccinated, if you were a close contact of a probable case, right? This last line here, school contact should be tested upon learning they are a close contact. Get tested again 5 to 10 days after the close contact exposure. So for the person who refuses to get tested, who could be a probable case, we have to move them into a category of a positive. But that doesn't mean that the students sitting next to that student have to automatically quarantine. What they will have to do is get periodically tested just to make sure they haven't contracted it. This is not like last year where classrooms had to go into quarantine, groups had to go into quarantine. We're going to minimize that contact tracing and the people who have to quarantine. And we can do that because of our good ventilation, because of the other protocols that we follow. So quarantining is predominantly for the unvaccinated who were identified as a close contact. That's within that sort of 3 feet range. Travel quarantine, right now there is no requirements from the state as far as quarantining, but the guidance is that if you've been vaccinated and you need to travel, you do not have to quarantine upon return. For the person who's fully vaccinated, the definition is it's 14 days after the last recommended dose. And again, even if you're vaccinated, the testing is still recommended because it is not impossible to also have COVID and to be able to transmit it. For people who have already had COVID, the number is 90 days. So the Department of Health identifies 90 days from the point where you contacted COVID to the point where you don't have to quarantine if you're a close contact with somebody else with COVID. After 90 days, the Department of Health considers would consider you in the unvaccinated category unless you were to get a vaccine. So close contacts who are exempt from quarantine are those who have been fully vaccinated, those who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 during the past 90 days, and then individuals who meet the next exception. And this is brand new. So for students, now this does not apply to staff members. For students, there is a new student exemption. All right, a K-12 student where both the infected person and the exposed close contact are K-12 students. The exposure occurred indoors. All right, so we have 2 students, close contact, indoor. Now, right there, that sounds pretty bad. Who maintain at least 3 feet of physical distancing during the exposure. But here's the key. We actually measure that. Let me finish and we'll do a Q&A. And this is where both the exposed close contact student and the infected student wore face masks at all times during the contact. So the setup for this is that let's take an elementary classroom. Okay. We have a student who has been identified as COVID positive. We would look at the students sitting around that student in proximity. If the students are wearing a mask, those who are close contact it does not necessarily mean they would have to quarantine.
We have the superintendent finish what he's speaking about. Well, the next thing that's on is the mask policy, and we're going to have a discussion about it. We're going to let the public speak, and we're going to.
No,
Superintendent, please
actually,
continue.
these slides are taken directly from the Department of Health. They're not my slides. They're from the Department of Health that went out to all the school departments.
Yeah. Everybody will get an option to speak. Can we just have leave the superintendent to finish his speech or his presentation?
So the DOH has put out the guidance for schools, and masking does have an effect. Ventilation has an effect. Cleaning protocols have an effect. Distancing has an effect. Unlike the previous years where there was a positive case, quarantining went out far and wide. This year, all of these things are taken into consideration to do everything we can to keep the kids in school. So it's distancing, masking, again, it has an impact. Ventilation has an impact. Cleaning protocols and social distancing has an impact. So we look at all of these things before we determine somebody needs to quarantine. We're following the guidelines from the Department of Health. Now, are there any questions? So, Chair, I don't know how you want to handle this. Are these school committee questions? Are these?
So, I mean, I'd like to go. Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent? And please ask through me. If that's okay. Go ahead. Would you mind, for purposes of us hearing you, would you mind just talking into the microphone?
Thank you.
And identify yourself, please.
Sure. My name is Ronnie Kanoyan. I live in town. I have 2 kids in the elementary school.
Thank you.
I am curious as to if decision today is that masks are mandated. Does all of the quarantine stuff that you just went over change, or is all of that already set and the only thing on the table right now the decision about masks?
Masks are a primary consideration. So if we have an elementary classroom and masking is optional and 10, 20 kids, I don't know, 15 are not wearing a mask and there is a positive case, unmasked, unvaccinated, with the transmission rate of Delta, yes, quarantine would be wider.
Wider as in more kids?
More
or
kids,
longer time?
more kids would have to quarantine.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
If anybody who wants to speak, so this is questions for the superintendent, and then I'm going to open it up for public discussion about the mask mandate.
Hi, my name is Michael Bartimoli, and I have 2 children who will be in school this coming fall. My question is, you had mentioned not having to do contact tracing.
Mhm.
Is that accurate?
We will still be doing contact tracing.
From a quarantining perspective?
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
because-
contact tracing will
Yeah.
still there. But again, the scope of it is going to be more narrow than it was
Okay.
last year.
Okay, understood. And what you just presented on the K through 12 is an exemption. So if you trip into having to quarantine, that exemption applies. Is that accurate?
I'm not exactly sure what
I
you're,
mean, it's applicable from a contact tracing perspective. So until you define the contact tracing, the extent of the exemption is kind of not understood. Does that make any sense? I mean, you're saying one thing by saying the contact tracing will not be what it was last year. On the other hand, presenting an exemption to that.
The exemption is new.
Okay.
That's new this year. And that was put out by the DOH, again, with the mission to keep more kids in school. And not just blanket isolate a classroom.
Okay, understood. So I'm just seeking, I would say, maybe potentially not right now on the spot, but additional information as it pertains to contact tracing.
And I should also say, these slides that I pulled out
Yes.
is part of a 77 pager.
Understood.
So,
Oh, yeah.
you
No,
know.
I was looking at the dates
Okay.
and such. Oh, yeah, they've been, yeah. But
Okay.
thank you. All right.
Thank you. Next person up.
My name is Frank Hallowell, 84 Buxton Street. I have a question on testing as it relates to quarantine. If testing is so prevalent,
Don't hear anything.
I think that's what happened. Here we go. The 77 pages that I told you about, most of those were the what if scenarios, which would cover questions like you just asked. All right, so that is covered. And again, I'm hesitant, and let me just also say, to go into every single scenario. It is outlined for us, and there occasionally are some adjustments and changes.
Okay.
I wish one of our nurses were here who could answer that. But what I would say is that, again, with the parent consent, we want to have that ability to do that testing. So if you are exposed to somebody who's positive, like I said, it doesn't automatically mean you go home. It means that we can test, we can observe. But I should tell you, there is a difference the way the DOH considers vaccinated versus unvaccinated, mask wearing versus no masks. So that factors into it.
thanks.
I think it's all set now. Okay.
Thank
How did
you.
you find out?
Come up.
You're getting okay. Okay. Can your friend text you in one moment? Okay, say something.
Testing.
I think we're good.
Okay, great.
Can we hear at home? Can you nod your head? Thank you. Thumbs up.
All right. So just a question. I know you mentioned this year we're going to be full in person, which is great.
Mhm.
So when the students, or if and when they have to be quarantined and we're waiting, is the online learning process still going to be available to them? I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, we're not going to be live streaming from the classroom.
Okay.
All right. So what teachers will be able to do, because they will be able to put work into Google Classroom to keep up at home. Now, we're also looking at hiring some tutors who can check in with the kids who are at home and keep tabs with them. But our entire focus for the teachers is going to be the kids directly in front of them.
So doesn't that sound like, especially if we're talking about 10-day quarantines for asymptomatic exposure and possibly or not possibly being, COVID positive,
Right.
we could have a lot of students that are missing out on valuable class time,
Yeah.
even more than,
Yeah.
even more than last year or the year before that. That could be very detrimental.
Right, and I absolutely agree. I mean, and the intent is to keep all the kids in the classroom. To keep the protocols in place, to limit the quarantining, and only do it where there's really a positive case. And not necessarily have to send all the kids around that person home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent?
Mhm.
Great.
Oh, hello.
I have one question to follow up on her.
Sure.
Is there some kind of an attendance policy if they are forced to stay home to quarantine? Does that count against them as far as attendance wise?
This is something that we're going to have to pick up with the Department of Ed because
Okay.
they have rules around that.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak. My name is Elizabeth Moylan. I have a question in regards to the PCR testing.
Mhm.
Are the thresholds for the cycles, are they all standardized across regarding unvaccinated individuals and vaccinated individuals? And what is the threshold?
Well, you asked me a question that I would really need to have one of our nurses here to answer that.
Follow-up question, are
Yeah.
you receiving any funds or grant money from the BINEX testing? The company, have you applied for any grant funding?
So we have applied for grant funding for our 2 CNAs. There is funds that were made available to help with that. The allocation for North Smithfield really only covers the 2 CNAs. As far as the BINEX, as far as the PCR testing, we're going to see if last year the Department of Ed provided BINEX testing to us, Department of Health. I don't know if they're going to do it directly this year or if we have to purchase it, but we should be able to use our ESSER funds, some federal funds, to purchase sufficient amount of testing.
Okay. I also wanted to state that 0 adolescents under 25 in the whole entire state across the pandemic have died in Rhode Island.
Mhm.
The current data for hospitalizations for school-aged children across the state of Rhode Island for the last 18 months, from 5 through 18, is 158 kids were hospitalized throughout the entire state and 0 deaths.
Okay.
So what are your metrics? Okay, so since July 5th, there's
Hold
only
on.
been 5 more cases.
Hold on. We're only at the question and answer portion. We have not opened up the public comment on masks and
Okay,
everything.
I have
So
one more question. Why are you promoting an emergency use authorized vaccination where all efficacy claims are based on trial participants contracting COVID-19? So we know it only prevents symptomatic infection like hospitalizations and death, when we clearly see that the demographic, as stated before, with the 0 deaths and only 158 kids hospitalized across the state. Why are you promoting a liability-free pharmaceutical product? They're all covered under the PrEP Act. If your child is injured or harmed by this vaccine, you have 1 year to file a claim with the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. So just want everybody to know you have 1 year from the first shot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. All right, I'm going to go on to the face mask policy and public comments. Welcome. Let me just ask for the rules of engagement to be respected. If we could respect everyone. Please, no foul language, no personal attacks. This is not the superintendent's call. This is our call as committee members. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Indicate if you're a resident and if you have children in the school. I do want to ask if any people who are under 18 want to speak. They want to speak first, last, if they want to come up, or if whoever is the first person on the list.
Hi, my name is Gabe Corvo. I'm an upcoming junior at North Smithfield High School. And here's my words to you guys today. I'm here to talk about 3 points. First, this is data from the WHO, CDC, and NIH. Quote, "The mouth, the tongue, and the nasal cavity are the dirtiest parts of the human body," okay? And if we want to trust the science, okay, like Dr. Fauci says, and everybody else we've been trusting, apparently, I believe the last thing we should do is place an artificial filter or a muzzle that won't block bacteria, but will collect it. In a recent experiment done by the University of Florida, a group of parents from Gainesville, Florida, sent their children's non-medical and medical masks into a lab. The masks had included bandanas, cloth masks, t-shirt masks, masks with filters, gaiters, surgical masks, cone style masks, and even N95 masks, most of which tested positive for numerous diseases and means of sickness. These things, which are, there are 11 of them, a lot of them I can't pronounce, but quote, some of them are pneumonia, tuberculosis, meningitis, currentitis, tubercular pneumonia, elements that are found in food poisoning, Lyme disease, diphtheria, Ligonges disease, Staphylococcus pterygius, and auris, end quote. All of which are highly more deadly than COVID for a child. My final point is in the CDC's own words, quote, "Masks do not catch all particles, small particles," okay? Which when discussing smoke particles, which are much, much, much larger than COVID, okay? At its largest, a COVID particle ranges from 0.06 microns to 1.4 microns, and a smoke particle range is around 10 microns, okay? So overall, a smoke particle is 7 times, at minimum, 7 times larger than a COVID particle, okay? So if we truly want to follow the CDC's guidance that they've stated numerous times, we shouldn't install a mask mandate on our students. In closing, personally, I'm a libertarian, do what you want, I don't really care. But if the North Smithfield School Committee and Superintendent, Mr. St. Jean, really cared about the students attending at North Smithfield High School, they would place their focus on the fact that students between and during class and during passing hours are passing around joints in the bathrooms, getting drunk, and passing out on floors in the bathrooms, okay? And if you guys seriously cared about this, you guys would go in those bathrooms and get this thing fixed, okay? Because this is a mess. I don't want to go to school when I see kids passing out during after school hours, kids who are athletic kids, okay? Personally, I don't really care. Do what you want. But if you guys care about the health of students here at North Smithfield High School, middle school, whatever, you guys will not install a mask mandate on our students here. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jackson Cardone, and I have 3 reasons why I do not support masks. I do not like masks because they give me headaches often. It makes it very hard to correctly work, and it's hard to focus properly.
Any other children want to speak? Okay, we'll go to, is it Tiffany Bollinger?
Before I get started, I would like to thank everyone for the amount of time it's taken on your part to pull the school year together for our children. It's definitely really appreciated. My name is Tiffany. I am a parent and a resident. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've worked in the hospital throughout the entirety of the pandemic. So I have science. I've read the literature. The new Delta variant is more contagious than the original variant was. It's about 3 times more transmissible. One person with Delta will affect about 6 other people. People who are vaccinated are still getting they're still getting the virus, and they're still transmitting the virus. They might not be getting sick if they've already been vaccinated, but they are still spreading.
Tiffany, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just speak into the microphone a little louder? Sorry.
Do I have to start all over?
No.
So people who are vaccinated can still get the virus. They can still spread the virus. So even for our middle school and high school children who are vaccinated, they are still at risk. Literature suggests that 50% of cases are spread by people who never knew that they were sick. That's where masks are important, because it helps the people who did not know that they could spread the virus from spreading the virus. Double masking is important because it stops the virus particles.
Please let her speak.
Would you like to come up?
Please let her speak. Please go on.
So masking is important for the person who might be the
Come on.
carrier because it does trap the virus particles. It's also important for the person who's not infected to wear the mask because it offers that double layer of protection. Study after study shows that masking decreases virus transmission rates by preventing spread. Ladies and gentlemen, there are over 1,000 studies available on PubMed and NIH. Will you understand all the words?
Can you please go on, and please let her speak. Everybody will have an opportunity to speak.
Both people need to be masked for maximum efficacy, which is why optional masking mandates are not effective. School is the perfect environment for the virus to spread rapidly. And as it spreads through our schools, the virus will spread through our homes to pregnant mothers, elderly grandparents, immunocompromised fathers. It's not just about our children getting sick, it's also about everyone that we love in our community getting sick. Yes, the hospitalization rates for children are lower than the rest, but we also sent these children home somewhere after. I understand that having alternative education options this year is difficult. And I've heard everyone say that the goal for this year is to keep our children in school, to decrease the rate, like the absence rate, which was a problem last year. The way we do this is by requiring masks. This is how we keep our schools open. This is how we give our children some semblance of normalcy. It's the only way to move forward. We now have 18 months worth of scientific data that shows that masking works. It is the job of our community to protect our children. And mandatory masking is the way that we protect our children. And it's also the way that we protect our educators who don't have a choice. And that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then Rothen.
Hi, my name is Kim Rothen. I am a mother of 2 daughters, one who is vaccinated, and I'm very happy about that. To me, this is not a political issue. It's not a liberty issue. It's a public health issue. And something to keep in mind is that the true measure of any society is how we treat our most vulnerable members and how we treat each other. And just from the beginning of this meeting, how we treat each other is pretty sad right now. Many of our vulnerable students, those who cannot get vaccinated because of their age or who are immune compromised, need us to look out for them. Instead, what I hear is my child, me, I have rights. Liberty is not absolute. You have your right to swing your fist until it hits my nose. And in this case, my nose is putting the common good of our community over our individual rights. I know you brought up only 400 children have died in the United States due to COVID. If I was the parent of one of those only 400 children, or those only 100 something that are in the hospital, I would feel no solace in knowing that my child's death was totally preventable if a community simply agreed to wear masks. I am a mom and I am a teacher. I am not a scientist. I am not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one. When my children or my family are sick, we go to the doctor, and when the doctor tells us what to do, we listen. It doesn't matter if it makes us uncomfortable or we don't want to do it. We listen to the experts, and the experts are telling us that the American Academy of Pediatrics is recommending universal masking. As a teacher, I can tell you that our students need to be in school, and based on the superintendent's presentation, the best way to keep them there is to wear masks. Additionally, for those of you who will argue that some students can't wear masks, our school has been nothing but accommodating to work with families who have serious legitimate issues. Finally, the problem is, generally speaking, children don't have a problem wearing masks. Parents do, as clearly is illustrated here. I choose to teach my daughters and my students that life isn't always comfortable. You don't always get what you want. Things aren't always easy, but you do what is right for the most people. And in our community, wearing a mask is one of those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Galano.
Hello, my name is Michelle Galano, and I'm the mother of 3 children in the NS public school systems, as well as a registered nurse for 8 years. And I've lived here all my life. I'm here to speak out against the mandated mask policy for our children. We have complied with the mask policy since the beginning of COVID, and it's time to get our parental choices back for our children. I have personally seen how this COVID pandemic has affected my children, especially my child who was in kindergarten in 2019 and has gone through the first 2 years of her schooling dealing with distance learning, quarantine, and wearing a mask. She is now going into 2nd grade, but remains at the kindergarten reading level. Distance learning and covering a face with the mask while trying to learn articulation will forever impact her reading comprehension, which could forever impact her education. I also have a 7th grader. She has a very special story. She knows firsthand what it's like to be quarantined and isolated for years. She had cancer when she was 4 years old and was on chemotherapy for 3 years following her diagnosis. She knows life behind a mask. It is isolating. She wore a mask when she went into the public to protect herself when she was immunocompromised. We would stay home and miss events to protect her. We decided those things. We did not expect the world to change for everyone, for her, and to have everybody else wear masks around her to protect her. It was our choice. We decided for her to wear a mask when around people and for her to quarantine herself if necessary to keep her safe. We would never ask another family to do something for the sake of our child. Those years of isolation and living behind a mask have forever impacted her emotionally and socially. And now we've gone backwards, putting her again behind a mask and being ordered to quarantine and take part in distance learning. Except this time she is not sick. She is healthy and has a working immune system for a condition where not one child in Rhode Island died in 2020. If you as a parent are scared or nervous about your child getting sick, it should be your decision if you wish for your child to wear a mask. You should not expect the world to change around you. You should not expect other parents to sacrifice their child for the sake of your own. This mask mandate was initially implemented without any thoughts of the long-term effects on our children. And now you wish to extend it without any more thought as to how it has already affected our children physically, emotionally, socially, and educationally. I know firsthand, because of my first child, that the isolation during the initial years of school has a huge impact emotionally and socially, an impact that can't be reversed. Bodily autonomy and parental informed consents are being stripped away. This pandemic has become an excuse to enforce things upon us without any scientific evidence to back it up. We have been expected to comply, and we have, but now it's time to think about the long-term effects on our kids. I've advocated for my sick child for years. I've questioned and gone against the norm for years because this is my parental right. We do still have freedom. We pay our taxes to attend public schools, as do others. What gives the schools the right to make the decisions for our children? If others are scared of our unmasked children being in the school system, it can be their choice to mask up or keep their children home. Our children should not be forced to comply with these rules so others feel safe. I urge you to maintain parental choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Galano.
How many people on this board have kids in the school right now? Could you raise your hand? Can we raise our hand? Okay. How many people have kids in the school system right now?
Well,
It's just a question. Just a question. Can we raise our hand?
I think you,
Anybody? Does anybody up here have kids in the school system right now?
well, I do. I have 3.
One? Everybody else is just going to be a coward and not answer?
I have 3.
Okay.
So.
So we have one person on the board who has been the one person who has answered basic questions throughout this process. I've personally emailed, messaged, tried to get answers out of everybody. If we wanted to avoid what's happening in this room tonight, you could have been far, far more equivocal in your questions that people have been asking. This anger is happening right now with everybody because nobody likes to answer questions. You all ran for office. You all could be more direct with your constituents. If you didn't want to do this job, then don't do it and move aside to someone that will. Because this, at this point, is ridiculous and it's causing havoc. This is about parental choice. This is not about what you guys deem the CDC says and what all the experts say. I'm not up here to spit facts. Everybody else can do that. This is about North Smithfield and the parents who moved here because this town used to align with our beliefs. This is not Providence. This is not Cranston or Warwick. This is North Smithfield. It has a reputation for personal liberties. You all know that. You all live here for the same reasons. Somehow that's been forgotten. Somehow. I'm not sure how. But you'll all be voted out, and people will come in that will realign with the personal beliefs people live in this town. We're not going to be shot down by the loudest in the room. It's not going to happen anymore. We don't want to be here right now, tonight. We want to be at home with our kids, playing outside. We want to be at work. We want to be productive members of society. We don't want to be arguing with you guys and bureaucrats and politicians in this room right now. We want to have our personal freedoms met. That's all we're asking for. It's not your choice what our kids do with one man sitting up here with a child in the school. One man. Well, you all work behind the scenes. We all know the rumors of what's happening. You made a decision, stick to it. Well, you go behind the scenes and gerrymander everybody on this board right now to make decisions. We already know the vote tonight. We already know. We know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. So my one question is, and then I'm done. One question I'd like answered tonight, so it's on record. What are you going to do when a child shows up to school without a mask on? What will happen? Are you going to send him home while parents are working? A 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, are they going to go home to an empty home? Or are you going to lock them in the broom closet? What's going to happen? I want an answer tonight. What's the answer?
So.
There's kids that are going to come to school on the first day without masks. What's the answer?
I don't think we.
I don't want you all looking at me with the eyes right now. I want an answer. What's going to happen to my kid, the security of my child, because he's not coming to school with a mask on?
I think my statement would be that we are going to handle it with respect.
No, this is not good enough. With respect. What's the answer? You have a 5-year-old kindergartner that comes to school without a mask on. Where is he going?
He's not going anywhere.
Is he going in? Is he going to be locked in a room? I'm looking at you. Is he going to be locked in a room, or is he going to be sent home to an empty home?
He's not going home.
Okay, thank you. So where is he going? Is he going to stay in his classroom and learn like a 5-year-old child? Stop looking at me like that. What's the answer? Stop being a coward. Laugh all you want. I don't find it funny. I don't find it funny. You think tonight's bad? It's going to get a lot worse. A lot worse.
Right, come on. Come on. Please.
No, I take this seriously. This isn't a game to me. These are my children and their personal safety.
I fully understand that.
So answer the question.
I don't think we have an answer for you.
You don't have an answer. 2 weeks away is the first day of school. You don't have an answer. Does your mic work? Does it work?
One moment.
No.
We are not going to deny a kid an education.
Tell me how.
Do we have to have a police escort every fucking day to bring these kids in?
Okay, sorry.
All right. What are we doing? What are
Greg,
we doing?
can we get back on that? we'll put it on the.
We're not leaving tonight, no.
Okay.
We want an answer.
If you don't mind, can we let people continue to talk and we'll,
So on record, no answer, nothing, no answer.
right now, we don't have a mask mandate.
Because you expected everybody to conform, that's what you expected, and we're not gonna conform. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. So what's your answer? Is your position you're not gonna say an answer tonight? Is that your position?
Greg? We'll address it, is that okay? Thank you, thank you. Ms. O'Hara. Ms. O'Hara? Wait a minute.
Secondly, whatever they present, maybe some of you don't want to hear it, but most of you know me. But I call it spade a spade. What I see is what I'm going to say. Their preparation tonight was outstanding. I don't, as far as what's been done to alleviate things, to have it easier for our children. Who am I? Some of you may think, my name's Claire O'Hara. This is my town. Okay, it's a town that's always cared. When my husband and I decided to come back to this area because of our roots, we went all over the state and we decided there's no place like home. And when a house that's like I'm the youngest thing in this house, which is great, was offered to us by a relative, we took the chance. And I don't want you to know how much we're making on it when I throw. But North Smithfield is a sure bet. The school system has always brought you in. Have we hit some rocky along the way? And let me tell you, I was at those school committees meetings as well, town council meetings at that time. What they're showing now, as far as how they're trying to keep them in, yes. I too, Gabe, I'm a libertarian. I am proud to say that I am a citizen of the Republic of the United States of America, and I've chose this community, and even people moving in. Jean Mayo, you've seen the movement of, we call them townies, but it means nothing, trust me. Come in, and people like Mr. Lombardi's wife that has started nonprofit to help people. People that have been active in the PTO. They have brought a unity to this community. And there's so many others that have helped people out and don't want their names. Well, if I go, there's one family, they just say how much when I walked in the door. But there are people that you would not even imagine. People, all you said, this family is in need, can you help me? And teachers not only teach, they teach academically, but they always, even many times out of their own pocket, tend to the needs of their students. So tonight, I almost started crying because I've never seen a gathering with yelling and screaming. If you're representing a cause, you're negating it. We are and always been a sensible town. Our children, you can see by the activities, all the time that parents, many of you volunteer. I did in my youth. So, oh my God, it's the truth. But I also believe, and I taught my children graduated, went through the system here. I have one of my daughters stayed in North Smithfield, and their children are going through the system. As my mother told me, If you want my advice, I'll give it to you. But I also believe that a parent has the right to speak up for their children. But it's the way you speak up. If you don't agree, you don't attack them. They also have a right to their opinion. That's why we have America. You may not agree with them, but you should listen to what they have to say as well. I haven't seen it tonight, and I was this far from walking out because I just felt, what is going on? This country may be a mess, but please don't let it tear apart our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Bartamoli.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Bartamoli, and I've been a member of the North Smithfield community my entire life. I attended and graduated from the North Smithfield school system in 2005. Today, I live in town with my wife and our two sons, Michael and Nicholas, who are now attending that very school system. I'm here tonight to express concern over the indoctrination of fear amongst our children and its long-term effects on their ability to grow healthily. For any parent, the greatest fear by far is failing our children, failing to prepare them for the challenges of tomorrow. Undoubtedly and evidently, today's adolescent is presented with challenges manufactured by the advent of social media, viralness, connectedness, which has done more to segregate and victimize individuals rather than improve inclusivity amongst community. It's more evident today that the power of cliques, social groupings, and status have influenced the development of our children. Have these things helped or hurt them? For many parents, we question these things and weigh their influence. When is the right time for a cell phone? Should we be limiting their technology time? Should we make them go outside and play? Why do we ask ourselves these questions? It's obvious. We worry about the long-term detrimental effect these things may have on them. There are not many of us who struggle with the idea of more screen time rather than less. If we worry about that, then should we not also worry about what we are here discussing tonight and how that decision will affect the hearts and minds of these children forever? Again, in a world where technology has proven to hinder the social emotional development of our youth, do we truly wish to propagate social anxiety and fear amongst them in other ways? Is that what you call protection? There is no arguing the fact that sharing a smile is a positive experience. There is no arguing the fact that speech development and alphabet and word pronunciation relies on physically seeing how such sounds are made. There is no arguing the fact that emotional awareness hinges on one's ability to recognize and interpret the facial cues of one's peer. There is no arguing the fact that the propagation of fear leads to increased anxiety, increased worry, and a deterioration of educational experience. Therefore, the question then arises, what is to be done to recover these things lost? How do we replace the ability to share in a smile, to share in a group, to laugh, to smile some more, and experience the world freely? You simply cannot replace those experiences. That is life. So this is indeed the sacrifice we must be willing to make as parents today. What we do today influences who and what they become tomorrow. What we do today dictates their development. What we do today defines the success of many future generations by way of interpersonal and educational experience dictated by us in this room. What is most important is that we mandate an educational experience that addresses the long-term issues of our current society, which have existed and will continue to exist after COVID. We must mandate that we will do the best we can by them and for them so they do not ever feel alone in their experience, so that they feel connected and never wish to be more alone and disconnected from their life. We must allow our children to be free in thought, or they stand to become victims of their own fears. These are the realities of the world. These children are our future, and the world we present to them is dictated by us. Therefore, what kind of world do we want to present to them? What kind of world do we want to build for them? For myself and many others, that answer has always been a better one. It's up to us to maintain that goal. The point here is simple. The health and well-being of our children has always been a parent's responsibility and consequently their choice. The responsibility of this establishment has always been education. Therefore, if we choose today to mask the mental development of our children by projecting our own fears onto them, then we fail on both fronts. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Ferguson. Danielle Ferguson.
Hi, I'm Danielle Ferguson. I am Rocco Tiano's mom. He is going into the 10th grade. So I have a lot to say. The first thing I want to address is the fact that this town is very and completely divided. I think we know that. We're a small town here. We have a little over 12,000 people in the town. And just like other towns across the United States, we are all seeing angry parents shouting, calling each other names, Facebook fights, the whole thing. I'm aware that the school board understands the tension that's been happening in this town for the past week. And given the position that the school board is in, I would have thought that diplomacy would have been key. I was told there was an email that was sent around with 80+ names of people around town demanding full mask mandates. Really? Demanding? Demands are an overstep. They're a premeditated move to propagandize masks. And it's a scare tactic for the community to go into submission, just like the Delta variant. I saw on our school website about how the Delta variant is very present in our state. It's more deadly and it spreads more easily. Don't be stupid, okay? The government that we have right now wants everyone to be fearful so that they can take away our rights. And the Delta variant is their new tactic. It is the newest name for the original coronavirus, which was the strongest variant at the time and did kill people. And it is now the weakest variant. And if you think any different, regardless of any health background that you have, you're reading the wrong study. You need to be aware of the real science. My entire family are nurse practitioners, and they have a different look at this because they're reading the real science. All the liberals in the room who don't believe that this is an influence from our government, I want you to just remember something. The dog bites everyone. It actually is about politics. It is.
Okay,
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah, I just want you to know that the Jews got on the bus willingly. Suppression,
All right,
fear,
come on,
they
come
did.
on, come on.
Okay? If they tell you that it's about your kids, what mom wouldn't jump on that, right? What mom wouldn't jump on that? If everyone is divided, then we can't fight united and we become weak. I know everyone's laughing and smiling, but at the end of the day, we should be, like Claire said, we should be one body. If you really believe that your masks work, and I'm not telling you that they don't, and if you believe that the vaccines work, then it should be choice, okay? This is about control. This is not about vaccines or masks. I'm telling you right now, if you don't see what's going on in our country, you have no idea what's coming. The fair thing to do is to keep the peace, not impede on individual rights, and don't overstep your authority. Continue choice. It's Tuesday. I've been working the entire day. I shouldn't have to remind a school board that I also voted for. Who keeps the lights on around here? Who keeps the students in their seats? Who pays the teachers and who pays the superintendent? Our taxes are high and that's what we pay for. You need to understand that you have no authority and you also have no way of enforcing a mask mandate. And you certainly, it's against the law to refuse my son an education if I drop him off at the door and I don't pick him up and he doesn't have a mask on. The governor has put you guys in a very tough position. Isn't that nice of him that our Democratic governor says to all the states, oh, you know what? I'll just leave it up to the districts, right? Because he looks like the good guy. He's sitting there and he doesn't have to make the decision because he wants to get reelected again for his position. But he put you guys in a really bad spot. So now you're the ones who are going to have to make a decision based on this when really you don't have any jurisdiction, credentials of any kind to enforce this or make that decision. And I want to address one more thing that I think is really important. There seems to be a Marxist group in our town that appears to have influenced people in town, including writing the letter and demanding that masks be put on our children in school. I'm also hearing that one of our council members, which I really hope not, is involved in this group. I'm hearing that 2 of the members have already made their decision to do a full mask mandate without hearing anyone. We know who the members of this group are. They happen to be the same people that have Black Lives Matter signs on their front yard and have Black neighbors who don't have these signs. Our Black neighbors don't need to be told that their lives matter, especially by their white neighbors.
Can we focus on the mask mandate?
Very embarrassing, very embarrassing.
Can you please finish up?
I can.
Thank
The
you.
towns in Rhode Island that have voted choice.
We'll be here all night if everybody
No.
gets to speak the whole time.
The towns in
Thank
Rhode
you.
Island that I have read the minutes on for their town council meetings have all had a mix of liberals and patriots on their boards. We have almost an entire board of liberals with one agenda because it seems that 2 of the members have already made their decisions and let it be known on Facebook that they were going to go for a full mask mandate. Awesome. I just can't believe that you would make it without listening to everyone. So now I have to tell you that I will be dropping my son off without a mask. And I am not going to have a panel of liberals who are going to tell him otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carver. Mr. Corvo, sorry. Councilman Corvo.
Council.
Thank you. Again, my name is Steve Corvo. I reside at 420 Grange Road. Good evening, committee members, Superintendent St. Jean, and those that are here in attendance. My family and I have been residents of North Smithfield for over 10 years. During this time, we have grown to love the people, the community, and the school district. I come before you this evening as one of your councilmen, but more importantly, as a parent. A parent to 4 beautiful kids, Ethan, Gabe, Judah, and Eva. I've seen all my children in their unique way flourish over the years in this district, thanks to the dedication and love the faculty and staff have shown. Over the last 18 months or so, we have seen what was only supposed to be a 2-week pause turn into a nightmare, something out of the Twilight Zone. This evening, we've heard both sides, vaccinate, non-vaccinate, masks, non-masks. I'm not here to take an adopted view on either end of the coin. By giving parents a choice, it leaves this stance at the responsibility and respect of each parent. For those on this school committee who do not have children in this district, I say to you, you have no idea what it's like. Let me share with you. This past April, more than 130 days ago, my son was on the school bus heading to a soccer game. with his teammates when he tested positive from a rapid PCR. Upon hearing this, the rest of my family took the responsible approach and got a full PCR test later that evening. The very next day, we found out all of us tested positive. At this point, we were made aware that the Department of Health would be reaching out to my wife and I individually to get interviewed. We knew that quarantine for at least 10 days was inevitable. What I didn't realize during my personal interview, the COVID case manager needed to know the date of the first signs of symptoms. Looking back, having very mild symptoms, for me, it was a lump in the throat and itchy eyes. I attributed that to allergies due to that time of the year. When we agreed that the date of the first symptoms started a week earlier, March 28th, the case manager concluded that I would be out of quarantine that day at midnight. She then proceeded to interview me in regards to my children. Looking back, each one of them showed allergy-like symptoms around that time as well. After 2 hours on the phone with the DOH, it was also concluded that my whole family would be out of quarantine the following day. Electing to still keep my kids home as a parental choice from school for the remainder of the week. They asked me that Friday evening to walk down to the turf field on school property to watch their friends compete in a soccer playoff game. Now, at this time, no sign-up sheets were consistently being followed. No limitation of spectators were followed. I figured, you know what? They've had a very difficult week. Sure, go ahead, have fun. I received a very distressed call about 15 minutes later from my son saying, "Dad, can you come pick us up? We just got yelled at and they're kicking us out." I was shocked. When I got there, they came right in the car, didn't say a word until we got home. Mr. St. Jean, are you paying attention? Thank you. Once home, they started explaining what had just happened. They stated that a faculty member saw them there and yelled, "You can't be here, you have COVID. Go home, you're supposed to be in quarantine." They felt embarrassed, ridiculed, and demeaned. How would the school have known under HIPAA guidelines of my family's positive case? I later found out that from the Department of Health, that my interview for each of my children was not taken as spoken truth from one of the district's nurses, implying that the information I gave was not accurate. As a parent, this infuriated me. The following week, my wife and I placed my kids back in school only to have my son home extremely upset, coming home extremely upset, anxious, and showing signs of depression. He confided in us that several students were being told to not be close to him, not to run alongside him in gym class, soccer tryouts, or sit near him at lunch because he still had COVID. Committee members, how do you feel if this was your son? Mr. St. Jean, how do you feel if this was your child? We teach tolerance, we teach respect. We teach not everyone has the same views, but we can still be kind. We even have a course that the district prides themselves on. It's called We the People. And I see a faculty member that's on here tonight that teaches the course. It teaches these young minds how to navigate through our Constitution and what our rights are as citizens. We have prepped these ninth graders to critical thinking and use what our founding fathers gave us as a measuring stick for our lives and how we should and want to be governed. In closing, remember the positive test I mentioned a minute ago, dating back to April 6th? Today, I took the responsible approach as a parent of my children and got all of us antibody tests. Now, we've all been told your antibodies only last for 90 days. Ain't that right, Mr. St. Jean? Well, I don't know where they come up with this data. They have no idea, and I've yet to see it. Anyway, I'd like to present to the committee members and Superintendent St. Jean that my whole family has tested positive for widespread immunity. If you're not aware of what this is, I'll take a second to explain. There's two antibodies that they test for. Take notes if you want. Immunoglobulin M, also known as IgM. These are antibodies that are produced as the body's first response to a new infection or to a new non-self antigen, providing short-term protection. They increase for several weeks and then decline as IgG production begins. What's IgG? IgG is hemoglobin IgG. About 70 to 80% of the immunoglobulins in the blood are IgG. Specific IgG antibodies are produced during an infection, initial infection, or other antigen exposure, rising a few weeks after it begins, then decreasing and stabilizing. The body remains a catalog of IgG antibodies that can be rapidly produced whenever exposed to the same antigen. IgG antibodies form the basic of long-term protection against microorganisms. In those with sufficient IgG produced, it will prevent reinfection. Now, don't take this as my Google search science, because I'm sure you could find faults in what I just read. This is actually from the Technicat that CVS uses that is administered by their nurse. It's the manufacturer's write-up. All in all, I will not be sending my kids into school wearing a mask in September, regardless of the committee's decision this evening. And if they are denied the common decency and right to a public education as a taxpayer in this town, I foresee Pandora's box will be open. I hope you will seriously consider not being against parental choice. I'm telling you, it's a slippery slope you're on, and we could be opening our district to legal filings with the Department of Education's OCR, also known as the Office of Civil Rights, under school harassment. Multiple families electing to file or amend 504 plans excluding the use of masks, or disenrolling their child for the first 30 days, then re-enrolling them back in the school system, or many other creative things people will do when they feel their freedoms are being infringed upon. I don't want to see our district tarnished financially for years to come. Thank you.
Councilman. Lisa Carter.
Thank you. I would like to just preface by saying that I have really been listening to everything that everybody said. I really appreciated Ms. O'Hara's comments about the importance of us listening to each other respectfully. My name is Lisa Carter. I'm a family physician. I work in Worcester, and I am a primary care physician to adults and children, and I also have a degree in public health, but more importantly, I have a son who's in the high school. And I just have a few comments that I think that I'd like to share with you. The first is that the Delta variant is different than others. It is more dangerous, it is more transmissible, and so it is more dangerous this year than it was last year for unvaccinated people to be exposed to each other. And the point about that I think is really important to make about masks is that these kind of masks work in preventing the person who's shedding virus from transmitting it. If someone who's shedding virus is not masked, then it's very limited protection for people who are exposed to them to have a mask on, this kind of mask. The only way that you can really be protected from someone who's shedding virus and doesn't have a mask on, whether or not they have symptoms, is with an N95 respirator. So the argument that parents can just mask their kid if they want their kid to be safe or if they believe in it and want their kid to be safe. Doesn't really work because people don't have those N95 respirators to really protect their kids. The only way that unvaccinated people are protected is if everybody's masked or the vast majority of people are masked. Now, I say unvaccinated. In the high school, the parents who want their kids to be protected really have had an opportunity to get their kid vaccinated. So in the high school, I think it would be very reasonable to not mandate masks because everybody's had a chance to protect their kid if they want their kid protected. It's different for kids under 12. Now, once the vaccine becomes available to kids under 12, then it might be reasonable as well to offer choice because there really is a choice. People who want their kid to be protected can get their kid vaccinated, and then if they get exposed to an unmasked person who's shedding virus, they might get COVID, they might get, you know, to a level of COVID where they would shed, but not, you know, end up in the hospital. It really does protect really well against that severe disease that we're so worried about. I also would like to make the point that kids who are complaining about masks and adults who are complaining about masks, it's not necessarily in their head. They're not crazy. And I think, I hope that I shared an article with some of you about the fact that some people really do get physiologic symptoms from wearing this kind of mask. It has nothing to do with oxygen or carbon dioxide or germs that are caught in it. It's about the unconscious changes in breathing that people do when they're wearing a mask. And you can learn how to consciously breathe, and you can learn how to breathe in a mask so that you don't get those symptoms. Healthcare workers have been doing it for decades. And this type of breathing, it's like yogic breathing or mindful breathing where you time in your breathing and hold it and time out. This has actually been taught in schools for over a decade just because it has other benefits to kids as well in helping them learn how to focus, help them be better at controlling themselves in the classroom. When they learn these breathing techniques. So I would really encourage you, if you do choose to give a mask mandate in the schools where the kids don't have the option yet to be vaccinated, to invest just a little bit into teaching these breathing techniques so that kids can be more comfortable in masks. The last thing I want to say is that there should definitely be an exception for kids who can't mask. There are some kids who have developmental problems, cognitive problems, for various reasons. They really can't learn how to do that kind of breathing. They can't comply with masking. And so if somebody has a physician's note saying that they can't mask, then they definitely should be exempt from that. And I think our kids are going to do fine with that. They're really good. They're very used to the idea that, you know, not every kid has the same needs. The American Academy of Pediatrics does recommend masking in schools so that students can learn in person, because the American Academy of Pediatrics strongly believes that in-person learning is much better than remote or quarantine. And so that's a lot of why they're strongly in support of masking, is because everybody who's talking about how bad it has been when people are quarantined and the educational problems with that, that's true. And I will just quickly say just about the question of whether masking interferes with language development, that actually children who have blindness and visual impairment learn language at the same rate as people with full sight. It's hearing impairment that really interferes with language development, but not masks. Thank you so much for everyone listening politely. Thank you.
Karen Flora.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us speak. I attended the school committee meeting in July, and I wanted to thank the committee for voting unanimously at that time to allow parents to decide whether their children would wear masks in school or not. I really appreciated the fact that you all recognize that it's a parent's right and a parent's obligation to make decisions for their children, and not up to the school, town, or state to make those. I'm here tonight to ask you to stand by that decision. A parent knows their child and what their individual emotional and medical needs are, and they can weigh the benefits and risks to the child and make that decision based on that child's particular needs. I wanted to say also, my son is in the high school. When school started last fall, all students in all grades wore the mask all year. And I think that many of our children suffered academically and emotionally. I've heard through friends that one of their students is going into 7th grade, and the 7th graders will be taking 2 math classes. They're taking 7th grade math and they're repeating 6th grade math because nobody was able to learn math. So for the first time, the students are taking 2 math classes. I know you just reported tonight that the students weren't making gains and you were concerned about that. So my own son, he returned to school to in-person learning in 10th grade. He never complained. He did not complain about wearing a mask. He was really happy to be back in school, happy to be with his friends. He wore it willingly. He really didn't care. But his grades began to suffer. Now my son, he was National Junior Honor Society. He's made honor roll every single quarter since he started school. But he would call me sometimes or text me and say, Mom, I don't know what happened. I took this test and I failed it. I don't know what happened. I got confused. You know, something happened. So this semester, the last quarter, the first time ever, he's going into 11th grade. First time ever, he did not make honor roll. You know, we didn't know why, what happened. He told me he would get confused even though he knew the material. You know, we didn't understand what was happening, but later I started to think he has asthma, you know, maybe from wearing the mask, it was difficult for him, or, you know, here tonight, we're hearing people talking with masks. It is hard to understand people when you're trying to learn things that you don't know. You know, you're hearing, you don't want to say, oh, what, I didn't understand you. Can you repeat that? You know, students maybe just keep going on without really hearing what the teacher is saying. So another area my son had a problem was emotionally. He was always very extroverted, joyful. He was class vice president in 9th grade, class secretary in 10th grade. He won the Hallowell Award in 5th grade. Like, he was always super outgoing. When he went back to school, he started to get depressed, which was so really unusual. We didn't know what happened. And, you know, now this summer, he's starting to feel better and get back to himself, but I'm so concerned about what's going to happen if he goes back to school and has to wear a mask. And I can tell you, like, he does not equate this with anything. I'm saying as a parent that I really feel that this is having an impact on our children. You know, we use social cues to relate to each other, and adolescence is such an important time for our kids socially to connect with each other, to form relationships. And these are hindering people. I can't see your expressions. I don't know what you're thinking. Are you agreeing with me? Are you smiling? Are you frowning? I don't know. And so this impacts our relationships.
Karen, may I ask, I know me. I gave 2 minutes. I mean, if you can wrap it up,
Oh,
if you don't mind.
almost done.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So again, I'm going to please ask you to stand by that unanimous decision that you made and allow our parents to make that decision for their child. And also, if masks worked, why are we still in this position? We've been wearing them in Rhode Island since April of 2020. And just one more thing, sorry. I did go to the Department of Health website today and I printed out the statistics for the North Smithfield School District. And I can see that since 2020, in North Smithfield Elementary School, under 24 students tested positive. For the high school, under 39 students tested positive, and the middle school, under 29 students tested positive. And in each school, even less staff members tested positive. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Karen, thank you.
Thank you.
Ariana and is it Lennox Ramos? Welcome.
Thank you. And we figured we would kill two birds with one stone, come up together.
Thank you.
Save some time. Thank you for your time. I know we're all, we've all had a long trek through this, and none of us wanted to be here in this position today, having to make these kinds of decisions. I, for 23 years, have been in an industry where I assess risk for a living. So of course, when something like a pandemic comes up, I can't help, it's in my nature to just look at everything I can and try to figure out the best way to manage it for my family, myself, our community. We're all kind of in that same position where we're looking to see what's happening with how is this evolving. Especially as you can see, my husband's, he's been serving on the front lines through the whole thing. And it was very scary for both of us. But suffice it to say, here we are, and I still continue to be looking at the studies as they're coming out, data as it's evolving. And we both, as a family, we support a parent's right to choose. We believe that it's always in the parents' best interest to make the decisions with regard for what's right for their children. I don't think that it's ever proper or appropriate for anybody other than a parent to make that kind of decision. So I wanted to share some data that I have been looking at that has kind of helped mold my decisions and how I go about my life with my children, my family, and maybe this will help others as well. So wearing masks with children does not go without risk. It doesn't. There are studies that are now coming out. One JAMA recently published, a JAMA study was recently published by the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics Division, showed that carbon dioxide levels 6 times more than the acceptable levels were shown in children that wore a face covering for 3 minutes. Well, this just came out.
If you could just let her
because
speak,
I
please.
checked it today. It has not been retracted. So,
If you just let her speak, you can dispute it when you get up.
what happens when carbon dioxide levels are high? Well, hypercapnia can be caused, which can lead to respiratory acidosis, which can be deadly. This is a scary thing for a parent to think about happening to your child.
Mild symptoms of hypercapnia include a headache, like our little man was up here talking about earlier.
So in addition to that, pathogen, self-inoculation, no proper hygiene, soils mask, just like Mr. Corvo said in the first one to speak. Kids are not using masks in a sanitary process. They're not they're not washing their hands, they're not changing out masks, they're shoving it in their pockets, and of course he referenced a study that tested what they found on these masks. These are what we're putting on our children's faces. And I don't think there's been ever a child that uses a mask in a proper form like a medical practitioner would. So there's that. We also have a statement that the New England Journal of Medicine put out saying, we know that wearing a mask outside the healthcare facility offers little, if any, protection. So, and that's because of the fact that they can't use them in the way that they're intended. So we also have the issue of what kind of psychological toll does this take on our children, teaching them that the air is toxic, their classmates are toxic. This is something that we won't even have an idea for years to come of what kind of psychological effect this has on our kids. So in addition, statistics show that children have a 0.008 risk of death from COVID. That's less than the flu. It really is. But we don't take the same precautions with the flu. We never have. We still let our kids be kids. We take precautions as parents. We keep them home when they're sick. We take care of them. Why is this any different? So Rhode Island currently has an 88.6 first dose reporting vaccination rate, 87.3 vaxxed over 65 fully. So with that, in addition to, we have 158 cases of COVID, which means possible antibodies that people have, which is about 15% of our state population. To me, it doesn't seem like we have the same risk we had a year ago, a year and a half ago. I do believe we are achieving herd immunity. Just looking at our data on, severe cases of COVID, we might have a slight uptick in COVID cases right now, but how many of those are severe? Certainly nowhere near what it was the first go around. So, I am here tonight, we are here tonight to say that, we support a parent's right to choose whether or not they want to mask their child, a parent's right to choose whether or not they want to keep them home if they're sick. But I don't believe it's up to you to decide whether or not my child has a right to an education, and certainly not to be kept home for 10 days while we wait and see, and maybe they have it, maybe they don't. This is our future on the line. This is our community's future on the line. The education in this community has always been top-notch, and you're already starting to see the numbers falling. What more does it take to resonate that we have to take action, and we can't keep our kids out of school, we can't keep putting them on remote learning. We need to get back to life, and we need to get them in school. They need to be kids.
Thank you.
My name is Lennox Ramos. Like my wife said, I'm not trying to act all cool or anything, but I have been on the front lines of this pandemic since it started. I've seen how ugly it can get. Most of the time it doesn't. I received an email saying that the choice was going to be left up to the parents. I received an email approximately 2 days after that from Jessica De La Cruz talking about the subversive nature of you guys just trying to pass the mask mandate without running it by us. When I already had an email, I made a decision for my son to come to preschool after I got that email. I paid thousands of dollars for him to come to preschool after I saw you guys decide to leave that choice up to the parents. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I don't remember the woman's name that was up here talking about it being political, but if you don't think it's political, you're not paying attention. It's clearly political. And you have one group of people that is trying to preserve the freedom and liberty for everybody, all parents, okay? And you have one group of parents that's trying to strip that right away from another group of parents. That's what tyrants do, okay? My kid is not coming to preschool with a mask on, and if any of you lay a finger on him and makes him put the mask on, I'm filing a lawsuit. That's it. I want you guys to stick with what you originally said you were gonna do. I never got an email saying you changed your minds or you're even considering it, except from Jessica De La Cruz. That's disrespectful as hell as a taxpayer in this community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. If I may, just ask everybody to limit their comments to 2 minutes, I would appreciate it so we can get through this. Written Corriveau.
Just before I got up here, I looked up this quote. It says, speak your mind, even if your voice shakes. It's exactly what's going to happen here, because I don't want to be standing here talking to you at all. Before I say my prepared comments, which are going to take 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I do want to talk about what you're talking about, where the students are going to be quarantined without anything being streamed at home. Cumulatively, my kids play 9 sports. They're in 3 bands, 15 classes, 7 courses, and many extracurricular activities. You understand that there are kids that are quarantined for 10 days and come home and have 1 kid in their course, which is 250 kids. If one of those kids gets a asymptomatic case, my kids come back home. And my kids have to quarantine for the other kids. The bigger family and the more involved these kids are, the more they're home. That being said, my name is Britton Corriveau. I live at 420 Grange Road. I'm a mother of 3 Northfield students, 1 2020 graduate. I have 5 C words for you to remember. Consent. Informed consent is permission granted in the knowledge of possible consequences. Typically, that is given between a patient and a doctor for treatment with full knowledge of the risks and benefits. This exchange of information is between a patient and their doctor, not a parent and their school board. Since you are putting yourself in the place of my doctor and me and my children, it is on you to show me why I should give informed consent to your masks and PCR tests, which will keep us home. Which brings me to coercion, the practice of persuading someone to do something by use of force or threats. Where are the detailed, specific, scientific peer-reviewed studies that show that masks work? There is also peer-reviewed studies to show that they don't work and that they're not effective or safe, and they have serious psychological consequences on our children and health consequences. Also, the potentially mandated facial coverings are considered to be medical masks. Let's be clear here, what our children are wearing are not medical masks. These are dirty rags with up to 8 hours worth of sweat, spit, toxins, food, and bacteria by the end of the day. Not on my notes, that's extra special for our athletes that stay in those masks and then go practice for 3 hours. On another note, the PCR test we are using has recently been proven to be ineffective in distinguishing between COVID and the flu. In fact, the PCR test will be withdrawn December 31st, 2021, according to the CDC website. Forcing my child to wear a mask or take an inefficient PCR test with false positives while the threat of being able not to participate in sports or their education is not informed consent, it is medical coercion. 3, common sense. There are plenty of scientific study claims I can make here today, but not in 2 minutes. And also not at the risk of the ad hominem fallacy being used against me, which is to discredit my words based on the platform on which I stand or the letters after my name. Truth is truth no matter whose mouth it comes from. I am not a doctor or a scientist, but I stand before you with the best of credentials. I am a mother with common sense. All 6 of my family members tested positive for COVID with PCR tests taken exactly 135 days ago. In my hand Are all 6 of our positive long and short-term antibody tests taken today, August 17th, 2021, all of us have immunity past the 90 days stated by the CDC, and you are going to medically discriminate against me? For conscience, quote, there's a higher court than the courts of justice, and that is conscience. It supersedes all other courts. Gandhi, quote, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Jefferson, please allow me and my family to follow our conscience of what we choose for ourselves. It is because of the above 4 reasons we will 5 not comply.
Thank you, Brittany. Frank Hallowell. Frank.
Course. My name is Frank Hallowell. I have 3 kids in the school system, 2 at the middle school, 1 at the high school. Good evening, school committee and members and Superintendent St. Jean. Before I get into my comments this evening, I want to personally thank the superintendent for everything you did in navigating the 2020-21 school year, keeping our kids safe and in schools as much as possible. Despite all the theoretical playbooks and guidance that is published and constantly updated, there's absolutely no playbook for real life settings in our schools or within the 4 walls of our homes. One of the late great Yogi Berra quotes, which is extremely applicable today, is, in theory, there is no difference between theory and practice, but in practice, there most certainly is. Here we are, August 17th, 2021, standing before you, the North Smithfield School Committee, as a community of parents advocating for what we believe is in the best interest of our children. Also, as of today, there is no state of emergency in the state of Rhode Island. There is no formal statewide mandate there is no formal statewide educational mandate on masking. And in the press conference today, the governor is still strongly recommending local communities to institute a mandate. There is ambiguous and suggestive language from numerous agencies that bend and stretch words such as recommend, suggest, implore, strongly, and universal. Have we asked ourselves why there is no state of emergency if the situation is that dire today? Many of us would say it's because it's political. Maybe there's another angle. Perhaps setting mandates as it relates to basic human civil rights is outside of a state of emergency, could be litigated, and may expose agencies and institutions to liabilities unforeseen. Regardless, we don't have the answers as to why there is not a statewide mandate nor a declared state of emergency. As I mentioned, we are all here advocating to you as to what's in the best interest of our children. With the absence of a state level mandate, as to what you all pointed to last year in terms of how you made decisions and to which the pace of decisions were made, I believe you should be putting that burden back to us with respect to health and safety decisions for our own children. I've spoken to most of you individually over the last few days. I understand the position you're in. I understand your logic. I understand your reasoning, and I sympathize with you as well. But with all due respect to the committee, there must be a line of delineation between the role of a school committee and ordering mandates on public health policy. Should you choose to reverse the decision that was set forth in the initial reading on our town's district masking policy, that line is right here, right now for me, as I believe you are overstepping your bounds. Furthermore, if a decision is reversed and implemented, I do believe you are opening Pandora's box with mandates on public health policy, and also in terms of the potential lengths parents and students will object and protest to a mandated policy. I do hope you have thought of every what-if scenario under a school committee imposed mandate. Mr. Jones, how does this end? When does it end? What does the science say the end is? Masking, contact tracing, quarantining. With the mandate in your rationale, it sounds like until COVID is totally eradicated. As my daughters walked out of here tonight because they had enough of listening to adults argue whether they should wear a mask on in school or not, they told me to tell you that when they show up to school, they will decide if they wear a mask or not you.
Thank you, Mr. Hallowell. I asked Corey, I can't read the last name. Corey? Corey, are you a doctor with that handwriting?
Yes. Hi, my name's Corey Kraus, 2 Denny Court. My wife and I moved to this town about 7 years ago. And basically, we moved to this town because of the school system. There was no other reasons. It was the school system. So I have a daughter in the school system still. My son graduated last year, but I will tell you, my son lost half of his junior year and pretty much 80% of his senior year. You get 4 years of high school. That's it. You get 8 years of grade school, obviously. My daughter's going to be a sophomore. I don't want to see my children lose any more, or my daughter actually lose any more school time. I don't want to see anybody else's children lose school time. Okay, March 13th last year, we were told 15 days to slow the spread. Well, here we are, August 17th, 2021, and we're talking about masks for children. Okay, it has to stop. It's going to keep going as long as people keep conforming. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. That's your choice. I respect you. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You shouldn't have to mask your children. Leave it up to the parents or the child. If you feel more safe with a mask, put the mask on. That's all. I don't think it should be up to the school committee to say whether or not my child or anybody else's child here should have a mask on. That's all.
Thank you. Christine? No. Oh, what's your last name? Zitterell. Okay.
So I am a North Smithfield resident and a mother of 5, soon to be 5, starting kindergarten this year, North Smithfield students. By profession, I have my initial degree in pharmacy, dentistry, and anesthesiology. I'm not tooting my own horn. I've studied things for a long, long time, okay? Masks, certain masks do work. They are fit tested, N95 masks, and they only protect the person wearing them. We are not fit testing however many students we have in the school. It does not work. We're not doing it. They will not. If I have COVID and I'm wearing that mask, my droplets, my bioaerosols are small enough with COVID that they're going to get to you. Does not matter what you're wearing on your face. It's not going to, unless you have a fit tested N95 on your face. And the only people who get those are people who work in the operating room or on the front lines, because they are going to come in contact with potential aerosols of that nature. Okay, TB, COVID, whatever. Okay, that's number one. Number two, yes, there are risks, because I do anesthesiology, there are risks to dead space within a mask. You are somewhat rebreathing that CO2, and yes, it does cause headaches. It does disrupt the children's learning ability. It does cause that physiologic fight or flight response. That's what it does, because hypercarbia causes tachycardia. So if you're sitting there like this all day, how do you sit and relax to learn? You don't. I already have a child with ADHD that I have to medicate so he can sit to learn. I don't need anything else disrupting his brain function. As far as having people who are asymptomatic carriers, if you are asymptomatic, if you have read over the time what the PCR test is and how they've used it and how these revolutions, these cycles, the higher the cycles, the more false positives you're going to have. So what has the CDC done? They went from 45 to 35, and now I think they're down to 30. And that's only if you're vaccinated. And if you're not vaccinated, they're testing you at 35. So they want more false positives, okay? And if you look at the CDC website, oh, I don't know, maybe January 20 something, they revealed that 6% of COVID deaths are from COVID, not with COVID. I'm not a math major, but 6% of 600,000, where we're at a year and a half later, is 36,000 people that died of COVID, not with COVID, not a pre-existing condition, not a comorbidity. That's 36,000. Look up the statistics for how many people died of the flu before we stopped counting how many people died of the flu in 2019. It's less than the number of people who died from the flu in 2019, okay? And we didn't do this. Now, believe you me, look, staring down people's airways all day long, I was caused to pause for 5 weeks. I was told I couldn't work, and I was terrified that the day I went to work was the day I was gonna die because I'm in someone's face. Doesn't matter how much protection I'm in, I did have a fit tested N95. And I believe COVID is real, and I believe people die from it. But I don't think this nonsense needs to continue. If you want your child to wear a mask, by all means, please let them wear a mask. But if you don't want your child covered all day long, okay, let us make that choice. Just let us make that choice, because I think we have a sensible town, and I'm not from here. I'm not a townie. I don't know about these secret emails and anything else. But what I can tell you is we moved here. My husband and I are both in the medical profession. We both moved here because we thought this was a good town to raise our children with a good school system. Okay? And the last thing, I know we're not into, there was a study out of Brown, by the way, that infants, they've been testing them for decades. And the children born, the infants born since COVID-19, they were averaging about an IQ of 100 over the last decade. The children born during the pandemic, their average is now 79. And masking people and reading faces and reading all of those things that they get from seeing someone's face and then having 3/4 of your face covered up is awful. I mean, I don't know how, maybe because my youngest has 4 older siblings that he's able to interpret cues. But my goodness, there are first children, kindergartners, preschools that are being completely covered. How are they going to learn those things? And the last thing I will tell you, as far as the vaccine goes, I've studied vaccines. I know what it takes to get FDA approval. You learn it in pharmacy school. The rigors for this vaccine have not been met. They've all been erased to get this through. You do what you want with your children, and that's fine. I think that you should. However, I will tell you, please research the history of vaccines and why we need long-term longevity studies, because when they were only done in animals, guess what? When they were given to kids and they didn't look out far enough, the kids actually had a worse reaction when they were finally exposed to the thing that they were trying to combat. They actually, 2 of them died. And again, as far as this VAERS things goes, there have been more harm from the vaccine in the VAERS system related to COVID-19 vaccines since the entire VAERS system was created almost 35 years ago. Exponentially. And you're taking young, mostly prepubescent, right? I mean, some of these 12-year-olds have not met puberty. We've not studied it out far enough. And I don't think, especially intimidation factors, social clubs, and everything like that, having the vaccine here, I know people want to get it out. People know where to find it if they want to find it. I don't think it needs to be in the school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Jackson Cardone here? You already spent? Yeah, thank you. Mark LaBoissonier.
I love people. I just want to throw that out there. You didn't hear me. There's no way that you cannot hear us with that picture. All right. So, dear school committee, thank you for being here. And actually, thank everyone for being here, because I truly believe that this is super important for our country, right? Like, it really, really is. All right. I agree with a lot of some of the things that everyone here has said tonight. I don't think that everyone has said something wrong. I think that this is super important to have the discussion. Here's my viewpoint. For the last 18 years, I have been a certified health teacher. I have proudly served our community since 2008 and sat on the town's Wellness Advisory Council since 2018. While teaching in North Smithfield, I have been recognized as the Ryaford Teacher of the Year and, but most importantly, have taught your children and grandchildren how to be healthy individuals while supporting their families and community in that goal as well. Like any science, health sciences have progressed over the years. We as a society have found new and better ways to stay healthy. With this virus and at this moment, masking in schools is one of those ways. Again, my opinion. Duke University researchers studied data from over 1 million North Carolina students and staff members between March and June of 2021. Their research has indicated that universal mask wearing by all students and staff led to a less than 1% transmission rate of COVID-19 within buildings. Further, their data indicated that when kids are too young to be vaccinated, masking was the most successful method of preventing transmission in schools. As you know, the health curriculum I have taught for years has been reviewed and approved by the school committee. For over a decade, I have taught units of study, including disease control and prevention, personal health, and community health. Yeah, I know, huh? It's tough. Some applicable examples of student objectives are as follows. First grade, practice ways to keep germs from spreading. Third grade, demonstrate making healthy decisions to prevent disease transmission. Sixth grade, analyze how information from peers influences and affects choices about engaging in behaviors that can transmit disease. 10th grade, predict immediate and long-term impact of lifestyle decisions on individual, family, and community. 11th grade, evaluate the effect of responsible behaviors on self and the community. If the school committee believes that the above criteria are important for their children and grandchildren to learn, because to their point, they have had a lot of children and grandchildren in this school system. Okay. Okay. So I understand that some people have turned mask wearing into a political issue, but to me, that doesn't make sense. I sincerely doubt that the school committee has received letters from parents that were mad because the school department requires the student athletes to wear football helmets or shin guards. I also find it highly unlikely that safety goggles needed for science experiments or tech ed projects have ever been hot button issues. Sneakers for physical education, coats for recess. The list goes on. Equipment to keep children safe in school does not stifle the rights of students or families. Everyone seems to be on the same page as far as reopening our schools this fall. In order to do that, the school committee is required to keep everyone safe. Legal concepts such as Section 504, free and appropriate public education, Rhode Island Law 1621, and a myriad of other laws indicate that schools need to be safe for all children. Both of my children have a rare autoimmune disorder that requires them to be on immunosuppressants. My youngest has laryngomalacia, which is a complicated respiratory issue. To be short, both of my sons are not yet eligible for the vaccine and would be more prone to COVID, and without school masking would be more likely to become seriously ill if they caught the virus. The thing that is most important under the laws that I mentioned is that both of my children, as well as a plethora of other students in the district, are entitled to a safe and public education. You have an important decision to make. The way I see it, you'll either be trying to keep everyone happy by creating a mask policy that will keep the children and personnel safe. The latter would give all students access to education that they are entitled to under the law. My father always said that the right decision is not always the easy or the popular one. Please take another look at the objectives that I have taught your children and make the right choice for mine. Respectfully, Marcotte.
Thank you, Mark. Again, if we could try to limit our comments, I'd like to try to at least have us speak by 9 o'clock or so. Kristen Butterfield.
Is she here?
Is Chris? Kristen Butterfield, she had to leave. Alexandra Norton.
Good evening to you all. Thank you for hosting this discussion. Sorry, I'm just kind of overwhelmed. Wow, the bottom line is, and I think everybody feels this, we are done with the pandemic. We are all traumatized psychologically, emotionally, physically, we're just done. And I guess, you know, I can discuss all these other things that we discussed in terms of the Delta being contagious. And I will a little bit, and you know, I'm here as a scientist, but I'm also here someone who's very passionate about public health. And you know, most importantly, I promise not to overwhelm you and geek out with my science, because I really am here to support family members and families in the community who have concerns. Yes, so I am not a current resident of. Everybody has had an opportunity to speak. I'm going to speak right now, and I ask you to be respectful. So I am
Anybody can speak.
Thank
Please
you.
let her speak.
So I am a former town resident of 10 years, and I recently moved due to COVID-related reasons, and I would appreciate it if I could just speak my voice right now. I have sat here for 2 hours in a district that I'm not in, so if I could speak because I care about this community, because it has been my home for 10 years, I'm going to speak. So when we talk about what happened in the last year during the academic year, from fall to spring, we had social distancing, we had limited class size, and we had mask mitigation practices, which were very successful in controlling transmission in the schools. What I ask is that we as a community focus on the group of students 12 and under who are not eligible to be vaccinated. This is the most vulnerable population in our community, and we owe it to them to protect them. We will not agree on everything. What we can agree on is that we can provide a safe and healthy environment to our community. What we can do is potentially the high school students are vaccinated. This is great. That population that is not vaccinated is at most risk. So let's talk about all of the openings that are taking place in Florida and Texas. I know you are seeing the numbers and the numbers of students being quarantined, and excuse me, I'm speaking. So if we can control this new variant, but by a simple practice of masking for the age group 12 and under, in 30 months, in 30 days, reassess the situation and then make appropriate plans. I know that we all care about this community, and I care about this community. I care about all of the children in this community because I have seen them grow up in this community. The most important thing in our children's health, we all share in our hearts. We want them to be happy, we want them to be safe, and we want them to thrive. And the best option for learning, we all know this, is in person. We all want this. I don't want the traumatic event of having to be quarantined or sick or in a bed or whatnot, or students bullying each other about whose parents said what and why did they say it and why they are not wearing masks. We need to show to our students that we are better than that. And I know that this board and this superintendent are doing their due diligence, so I'm not going to go into the data because they have all of the resources they need. The most effective tool in risk assessment is masking. So if we can just please protect the most vulnerable, which is the age that is not eligible for vaccination. And I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for showing up and being their authentic selves and being passionate about things that they're most concerned about. Thank you to the board. Thank you for your time and for your active listening, and most importantly, for having our children's health and safety in your hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. Haley Cuddy.
Hello, everybody. My name is Haley Cuddy. I am a resident. I have 2 children in the school system, both of which are under the age of 12. We can go back and forth with data. I can show a study that says one thing and someone will read something else and see what they want to see. I believe the original mask document that was set out with the agenda was labeled as a draft, with today being our time to discuss it with you, and I appreciate that. But it comes down to the fact that the government has put the decision into the hands of this committee, something I am sure they did not ask for. I'm hoping you can come to a conclusion that is both fair and safe. Like others, I can see parent choice working for the high school population, where some children can be vaccinated, but not for the under 12-year-olds. That would be 6th grade and under. Those kids should be masked. It's their only defense against the virus. Maybe more outside time, maybe more open windows, maybe more mask breaks will help with those who aren't comfortable with it. And I'm sure we can make accommodations for those who seriously have issues wearing masks. I think the only way we are gonna heal our community is to come up with some sort of compromise, something that makes most people happy. We can't make everybody happy. If no compromise can be made and the choice is to make the decision in the parents' hands, I am begging you to bring back the distance learning option for those of us who do not feel safe sending our children into school, who can't be vaccinated and who would be exposed. That is all I have. Thank you for your time.
Haley, thank you. Amy Mandeville? Yeah. Yeah. Oh. I didn't see you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Mandeville. I'm speaking for my daughters who are in the high school. I had some longer things, but I'll just start with here. I'm just wondering, what are the community metrics that are driving the mask mandate discussion? And how will we know when we've reached an acceptable metric to change? Is there an acceptable metric? Or is the metric that no person shall ever test positive for this virus? It's not going to happen. The RIDE page Back to School on their website has the following statement. In every decision we made and continue to make, we put the mental, social, physical, and intellectual health of our students first. Are you able to cite a metric confirming that these masks are not having an effect on our students' mental, social, physical, and intellectual health? I think the mask decision, like the vaccination, should be left up to the student and their family. Thank you.
Thank you. David Dela Cruz. David Dela Cruz.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. My name is David Dela Cruz. I am a resident of the town, and my wife and I have 3 boys, 2 of which are in the school system here in North Smithfield. And I appreciate each of you as a school committee and appreciate the gravity of the position you've been put in. I know this isn't an easy decision for you. I know you're weighing a lot of different concerns, the concerns of the state and the parents and the students and their health and their safety, and of course the freedom and liberty that continues to be a major concern. And I know you're being as thoughtful as you can about that. That said, I used to be a civics teacher for several years. I taught civics, and one thing that I appreciated about civics was seeing the civic engagement of my students. And it was nice to see some young people using their First Amendment right to speak up and share their own concerns and their own opposition to this mandate, and I join them with that. I want to be clear that if there's a hill that I'm going to die on, it's going to be the hill of parental choice. And I hope that as a school committee, you'll respect that position. I also appreciate Claire O'Hare, who spoke earlier and spoke about this country being a representative government. One thing that I think might be helpful is, as an educator, I just remember how some people learn by hearing. They're auditory learners. There's been a lot of talking, but I think it might be beneficial to the committee if we saw a show of hands. So how many of you, if you're a resident, that is, how many of you support or oppose rather, how many of you oppose a mask mandate? Thank you. I just want you to see that visual because this is the committee, or excuse me, this is the community that you represent. These are your constituents, your voters, and as you make your decision today, I hope you'll remember that picture. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'd like to go to the Zoom statements. I don't know if we'll get away for the superintendent. I know. All right. Does anyone else want to speak who hasn't spoken? Okay. So I'm going to put this out, but I'd like the superintendent to go to Zoom first, and then you can finish up.
But I'm going to tell you one thing about vaccines. The reason that we were able.
Wait. No, I asked if anybody else who hasn't spoken,
Oh,
if they want to speak. Sorry. All right.
Not going away. It has animal reservoir, so it is not going to go away. There are treatments that are being studied, so it can be managed. And they're trying to treat them in children inside the way they should be. And it has been done in other places around the world. And there are a lot of states and a lot of countries. Please don't think that we're not going to have COVID in depth. We are. Just like the flu. I'm not saying just like the flu. As the flu goes, so does COVID. We're going to have forever. We're not going to have zero. We're never going to have zero cases. We're going to have to deal with it.
The folks on Zoom, they can see what's coming out of the camera.
Okay.
They can hear us. I just can't get them on that
That's
screen.
okay. Can we hear them?
We can hear them.
Okay. So if we can ask them to limit their comments to 2 minutes, try to. I've been lenient with the 2 minutes. I want everybody to say their piece so that we can vote after this. So if you want to have the first person who has their hand up, then please limit it.
So the first person is Rosanna. I'm going to allow you to unmute. Okay, Rosanna Campbell.
Good evening, everybody. I am a town resident. I am a mother of a student in town, and I am also a teacher. I've heard a lot of statements tonight. I find the lack of civility very troubling. And I really hope that this is not how parents teach their children to have manners in public. I know that's not the type of behavior I would, model in my classroom, and my students are actually really, really respectful and very decent to each other all the time. So one thing that you know when you are a teacher is that everybody loves to tell you all about what you do for a living. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to assume that I know what a medical doctor does. There was one medical doctor here tonight. I listened to the medical doctor. Do you know why? She is the expert. And if you did not go to medical school, you are not an expert. You reading a study from Arkansas in, 2021 from some obscure magazine does not make you a medical doctor. I'm disturbed and troubled at some of the very frightening and inflammatory statements made earlier. And I know that the people in this town on the whole are not angry, inflammatory people. And I kind of feel a little bit concerned about everybody being concerned about their own, you're calling it freedom. Well, where's my child's freedom to like breathe and not get a deadly disease when he attends school? He doesn't have the option of a vaccine. That's not a possibility for him. There's no distance learning option, which I think is really very, very poor choice for everyone. I understand that the governor should have made this decision and that really it shouldn't be falling on the school committee and the superintendent. However, there really are no good contingency plans in place for the situation that we're about to be in. Everybody knows, anybody that has any brains and knows how to read knows about the Delta variant, that it changes everything. I heard people citing a lot of very outdated numbers and data that no longer apply. None of that is helpful because, you know, facts do matter. So I guess I'm wondering, since we're a vaccination cold zone, how come my son gets to swim in a vat of COVID, but other people's children can just be happy and not wear a mask? I don't want to wear a mask. I have very bad asthma, and I've been wearing a mask for a year and will continue to do so again because of people that didn't want to wear masks and vaccinate in the first place. So what you are calling your freedom and your personal choice is actually infringing on my freedom to breathe and to survive.
Rules don't work.
Excuse me? I don't know why people are yelling in the middle of.
Just let her speak.
So yeah, so again, I guess I'm going to end it with the very disturbed lack of civility in this meeting. And perhaps some of the parents should really go back to school for basic manners, or maybe sit down with their own parents and they should review how you treat and act and behave in public towards other people that also pay taxes in this town. And by the way, no, our taxes are not high. Try again. And have a wonderful night, everybody. And I'm glad that children will all be not having to wear a mask and get sick.
Superintendent?
I thank God my kids don't have you as a teacher. That's classy. Keep it classy.
Superintendent, next.
Tracy Lafreniere.
Hi, my name's Tracy Lafreniere. I'm a town resident, I'm a parent, and I am a teacher at North Smithfield Elementary School. And I can tell you that probably one of the worst days of my teaching career, the worst time, was March of 2020 when we were basically forbidden from being face-to-face with our kids. And so I will do anything to be in a classroom with our children as much as possible. And if that means wearing a mask or requiring our elementary students who are not vaccinated to wear masks in order for them to avoid quarantines or unnecessary absences, then I am willing to do it. I was on the reopening committee, we made plans, and like everything, plans are changing. There was just like at 8:04 p.m., this may not even be in our hands anymore, because the Rhode Island Council on Elementary and Secondary Education has voted to order the Department of Education not to approve any back-to-school plans that don't include mask mandates. So if we want our kids in school, we may have to, unfortunately, have a mask mandate, if not forever, then temporarily, just to get them back. Our kids need to learn. They desperately, we knew there would be learning gaps. We didn't know to what extent they would be, but from our curriculum-based data, from our state assessment data, we know that kids learn best when they're in school. So we need to do everything to keep all of our students in school. We protect all of our students. If there's somebody who has a deathly peanut allergy, then kids have a right to bring peanut butter to school, but they don't have a right to eat it in the classrooms. Everything we do is a layer of protection for our most vulnerable students. If we can protect our most vulnerable students in any way and give them the same right to an in-person education, then I am all for it. But this may not even be in our hands anymore. And that's all I have to say. I don't want to take up any more time.
Thank you.
Rita? Rita Frechette. How about Kathleen's iPad?
Oh, am I unmuted?
You're Kathleen's iPad. No.
I am. I've gone. Yes, thank you. So my name is Natalie O'Brien, and I heard a couple of comments earlier about how it was really important for people to speak and voice their opinion if they had children in the school district. So I live at 128 Old Great Road, and I have two daughters. One goes to the elementary school, one goes to the middle school, and as many of you may know, I teach at the high school. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a scientist, and I teach civics, as many of you know, and I applaud this opportunity for us to share our views. Although I must say that I was very saddened by the low level of civil discourse that has happened there this evening. At one point, my daughter, who I try to teach, the beauty of being in a representative democracy, was listening, and then I heard somebody say the F word, and then I heard some other things that were also very disturbing. And we want to engage our children in having these conversations because it is about them, and that's what everybody's talking about. So I suppose for a moment I felt for my students who I ask day in, day out to take strong positions, but not, take such personal attacks on one another, and how hard that might be for them. So I guess I just want to say that in one way, I totally understand how hard it is for everybody, and we care about our kids first. I want to say that my kids have thrived and grown, and maybe not everybody's have, but we have, made it through the pandemic, and do whatever we need to do in order to try to have, semblance of normalcy and allow ourselves to grow and flourish. And my children have done well. In fact, North Smithfield spent a lot of its COVID money to do these wonderful classes at the elementary school and the middle school and the high school. And I have to say, whenever I went to NSES and I saw these little kids in masks going to school in the summer, they were thrilled. And maybe you're in a mask, so you can't see the smile, but you can certainly tell when a teacher's happy to see you and you're happy to see your friend. And as for parental choice, I don't know. I have kids who can't get a vaccine. So I know at the high school level, it is different, right? So everyone who wants to get a vaccine has gotten it, right? And I would hope that people who are eligible get the vaccine, but my kids cannot. And it seems to me that we should require kids to wear masks. And just on one final note that I'd like to say, of course I teach critical thinking, and I think all teachers do. But we also teach kids about following rules so there's not totally disorder. And I have to say that my 11-year-old isn't like gung-ho to wear a mask, but she's not vaccinated, so I will require one. And whatever this, elective body decides, she will follow that rule. And I would never send one of my kids to school to be subversive to school orders. Not that they can't have a voice, not that they couldn't circulate a petition or speak at a meeting, and I was glad to hear students here, but just teaching, I don't know. I suppose I have said enough. I was trying to do the 2 minutes. I was ready to time myself. I forgot, but thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Nicole Lavoie.
Hi there. My name's Nicole Lavoie, and I have 3 kids. One who's preschool age and has receives walk-in services at NSES, one in the LBC classroom at NSES, and one going into the 7th grade at NSMS. I don't want to take up a lot of time repeating what others have shared regarding the recommendations put out by medical and health professionals on mask use in our schools, as I think the bottom line is that our children are entitled to a public education in an environment that is as safe as we can possibly make it. This committee and everyone who works in our schools did an amazing job at providing a safe learning environment for our children last year. And I feel strongly it's too soon to dismiss the benefits that masks have had on keeping our kids safe last year. And like Natalie said, this summer, my younger son had to quarantine 2 times last year due to being a close contact to a COVID positive student. And neither of those exposures occurred in his small self-contained classroom. They occurred when he integrated with his grade level regular education class and on the bus. And mind you, neither of these exposures did he end up catching the virus. And I feel strongly that that's because of the protocols that were in place in our schools, especially the universal masking. My concern is that without universal masking in place, the risk of my son being a close contact to a COVID positive student increases if those around him are not masked. And this also increases the potential need to quarantine. Something I've seen a lot of people mention is how masking impacts those who are quote unquote not neurotypical. And as a parent with a child in the LBC classroom at NSES, I can tell you that my son wore a mask all last year and all this summer during ESY with 0 issues. Even if that meant switching out his mask 3-4 times a day because it got wet or dirty. I made and I bought extra masks. I washed them every night. I sent a lot in with him. There's no excuse. He wore them, there was no problem. To me, the impact of my son not being in the classroom with his special education teacher, his IAs, him being able to receive all his other support services due to having to quarantine is far more detrimental to his development and education than wearing a mask all day. I also want to clarify that I do not feel that in order to reduce my son's exposure to COVID positive students, that we should have to limit his integrations with his neurotypical grade level peers, which is what happened for a good portion of the school year last year. Please vote for universal masking and help reduce the spread of this virus and the need for our children to quarantine any more than absolutely necessary. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diana Sorothy.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. So I am, I've heard a lot of folks that are very passionate. I'm just as a passionate parent as a lot of you. I'm a very overprotective parent, meaning I kept my kids home and they were distance learners for the full year. I made that commitment as a parent because I was home working. So I made that commitment to make sure that they were doing the right things and I was able to help them with their schoolwork if necessary. I was their support group. Not having that option this year scares me to death as a parent. That keeps me up at night. That makes me worry. What about if my kid is going to be the kid that gets really sick in the hospital? What, you know, in those cases that potentially that are happening now, right? There's some cases out there. I have friends that I work at, Hasbro Children's Hospitals. So, I'm hearing all those crazy stories that are real. So not giving that option for other ways of learning other than in classroom really scares me. So my question, and I have a lot of concerns, but my main question is, when will you reevaluate this model? At what point, is it a case of number of cases out there in the school system? At what point do you reevaluate and potentially offer that at-home learning? Has that been thought of or mentioned at all in any way?
We are working on the distance learning option for those families that require it due to a medically fragile student. We're working with the Department of Education at the moment for services. So no, we're not looking to turn anybody away. We are going to work to accommodate any student at any need.
But I guess my question is, that's great. That's great that you're putting those plans in place. But what point in the school system where there's outbreaks that are going to occur, and we know it's going to happen, right? You even said it was going to happen. At what point do you look at the entire model and reassess, right? That's my question. So, is there a certain number of cases of an outbreak that occur maybe in the school system that say, well, maybe we need to reevaluate the model that we have and provide other ways for students to learn? At what point do you do that? That's my main question. It's not that if my kids don't have any medical issues, I'm all concerned about 50, 100 cases in the school. Is that when we offer other options? When do we offer options?
I don't think that that's what we're talking about right now. If you want to follow up with the superintendent, I'm sure he'll be able to answer that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rita Frechette? Let's, Salisbury?
Hi, my name is Sarah Salisbury. Not sure why it just says Salisbury. Sorry about that. I am new to the town of North Smithfield. I will be, hopefully our closing date is next week. I moved here specifically because of the amazing reputation of the North Smithfield School Department. I also have 2 children that will be currently in the system and one that is underage. He's 2. My daughter has autism, and the district I'm coming from grossly mishandled last year. I am very much in favor of parent choice. My daughter has autism, like I stated previously, and social cues and other things that go along with that socialization is my main concern for her. She is very bright. Her social aspect is why, I would like her to be in school, and missing out on the in-person learning was absolutely horrific. I'm also a healthcare worker. I do my research and data as well, and there is nothing detrimental to hand washing. There is nothing detrimental to 3-foot distancing, which is a droplet. Your droplets go and they drop after 3 feet if you've been in any type of infection control or hospital orientation. So masking is potentially detrimental and also bacteria causing. RSV is also on the rise, possibly due to this, possibly not. Honestly, nobody really knows what's going on, but you can rely on what you've known thus far. And we're all parents. We're all here because we care so much about our kids in the school system. And I'm so super proud and excited to become a part of it. I'm really in favor of choice because I think mandation is a step in a very bad direction. And I'm just looking forward to meeting all of you and hoping that we can do it with the smiling faces of our kids. Thank you so much for the time and letting me speak. And I will see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Sean?
Good evening. My name is Sean Ingram. We live on Pound Hill Road. We have 3 kids in the district. We were actually there at the meeting earlier in person, but had to come back home. But I did want to take a few minutes to express my opinion that these tyrannical mandates that are sweeping our society will end when people rise up and say, no, we're not going to abide by this anymore. And I think that as you've seen tonight, you have a vast majority of your district that is saying no to this. The option has been given to the districts to make this decision, and as our representatives, we're asking you to say no and not mandate this on our kids. There's no evidence that I've seen of masks being useful throughout this pandemic. Otherwise, we would have been out of this pandemic when there was 2 weeks of slow spread back in March. So with that, I strongly urge the committee to vote no. Thank you very much.
Okay. Last call, Rita Frechette.
Okay, so I'm going to move to the additional people who have signed up.
Parents that want to mask their children, parents that feel that that's in their best interest.
It's all set.
Where was it? I also fully support parents who choose not to mask their children for whatever that reason is. As parents, we know what is in the best interest of our children, and we need to have the ability to make sound, educated choices for our kids, especially when it comes to something like this. The array of problems that this pandemic has caused many children is not something to be taken lightly. As a parent, it is absolutely heartbreaking to see the damage that this pandemic has had. Ooh, I'm going to get choked up, has had on the mental health of our children. Parent after parent have come to me to share similar stories of mental health defeat. Sadly, kids catching COVID-19 is not the worst thing that can happen to them. I do not doubt that hospital beds are filling up with COVID patients, young and old. But do you know what beds have been filled up since shortly after the world shut down in 2020? Hospital beds for pediatric mental health patients. It is easy for some to dismiss the reality of mental health because we have been groomed to not talk about mental health in our society. But mental health is one of the most difficult illnesses to deal with at any age. I hope people listening to this, those who demand or vote for a mask mandate, understand the very real and very heartbreaking reality that serious mental health crisis our children are facing due to depression that COVID-19 has brought them. It is not something to be taken lightly. I know that firsthand. I hope none of your children ever come home from school and tell you I wish I was dead because of their depression from this pandemic, as one of my friends had to hear. I hope none of you ever have a child sitting in the ER at Hasbro for 3 or 4 days because there are no pediatric mental health beds available, as another friend had to do. 0 children have died in this state from COVID-19. We cannot say the same about children who have died since the start of this pandemic to suicide. Having a child quarantined or hospitalized with COVID-19 is not the worst thing that can happen. It is absolutely heartbreaking as a parent to have to hold your child's hand as they're dealing with a mental health crisis that is fueled by this pandemic. It is a sad reality. These kids need to see someone smile during the day. These kids need to know that everything is going to be okay. These kids need to go to school and learn in the least constrictive way. My heart breaks for kids that come from a difficult home environment where they never get a smile. Then they come to school to escape, and now they don't see a smile. They're told they have to social distance from their friends, and they're living with constant depression and fear. That is a sad, heartbreaking reality. I hope our respected school committee members ask some very difficult questions tonight before you go and vote for a blanket mask mandate. Why does this have to be an all or nothing approach? How are we 2 weeks from the start of school and we're still fighting about a mask mandate with no other options? We have kids fully vaccinated in the middle and high schools. Are there going to be exceptions? Why can't these kids wear a mask in the hallway, take it off when they get to their desk like they do in the cafeteria? There has to be some sort of resolution so that the kids that are going to suffer the most are taken care of. Same with faculty. Fully vaccinated faculty should have the option to work or teach without a mask if they so choose. Whether or not you want to test them, whatever that goes, but we need people to smile throughout the day, and these kids need to see this from all levels. I'm not talking about just little kids, okay? I'm talking about high school seniors that I'm dealing with. They need to know that everything's going to be okay, no matter what age they are. Okay. This can be done safely. It is a depressing environment to sit there day after day and not see anyone smile because everyone has a mask on. Okay. I think we should have a virtual option of some sort. I think that should be something that's really considered. There's a lot at stake here. My kids did not do well virtual learning. Okay. I know some of their teachers have spoken and they will agree with that. Okay, they did not do well. There needs to be something to mitigate that. Okay.
All right, can you wrap it up, Mr. Lombardi?
Aren't you used to listening to me by now, Jim? 25 years. Okay, all right. So to wrap it up, all right, there's so much more that can be done other than an all or nothing approach, and I hope the school committee understands this. Okay, the all or nothing approach hurts a lot of kids, not just mine. It hurts a lot of kids. And I am speaking from experience, I am speaking from the heart, and I am speaking from somebody who knows the damage that this has done. You have no idea what it can happen to these kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Harry Bennett.
Hello.
Tell them your name.
Bella.
And what grade are you going into? Kindergarten?
Kindergarten.
And how do you feel about wearing a mask? How do you feel? Do you want to wear a mask at school all day?
No.
No? Do you ask the school committee to think about that because it's you who has to wear the mask all day? Do you want them to think about it and to think about you and not making you wear a mask and letting it be mommy's choice? You want it to be my choice if you wear a mask? Or that? Yeah. Thank you. I am a resident of this town. I have lived here. I grew up here. I graduated from here. I bought a house here and I chose to raise my family. I have 4 children, 2 in the school system, and I'm just asking for you not to make the choice for me. It is my child. I gave birth to her. I have a legal piece of paper from the state of Rhode Island that says she is mine, and it is my choice on whether I mask my child or not. That is all. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you.
Actually, one last thing I just want to say. I have a 13-year-old in the school district, and he had the worst year last year. He suffered. He almost stayed back. He suffered so much with trying to comprehend and do distance learning. We also went on vacation to Florida during the pandemic. We quarantined right after. He did not go to school. But somehow, some way, the kids at school found out in the school system, and he was humiliated at school. The entire classroom moved their whole desk to the other side of the room and said, "Cody, why are you in school? You're going to kill our family." And then the teacher proceeded to put my son in a room for 2.5 hours before I was even called to come pick him up or even to notify there was a problem. I'm just asking you to think about us, our parents, the kids and us parents. And if the parents over there would like their kids to wear a mask, that's fine. I just don't want mine to wear a mask or to be required to wear one. That's all.
Thank you. Representative Newberry.
Brian Newberry, 53 Pollitt Street. I'm actually here as a parent because I'm going to have a kid re-enroll in the school system for the first time in several years. And I don't envy the position you guys are in. I mean, I know what it's like to sit there and have people yell at you about things. I think in all the years I've lived in this town, it's been about 22, I don't think I've seen an issue since the power plant that was this divisive and got this much, such emotion riled up on people. And I just want to say everybody here, no matter where you come down on this, I know the folks on the school committee, I may or may not agree with the final decision, but I know they're trying to do the right thing. Hopefully they'll do what I wanted to do, but we'll see. I just want to touch on 2 quick things. One is this format is not good in the sense of people can cite statistics and science, studies and so on. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an immunologist, but I can read, and I've been reading a lot on this over the last 18 months. I have no confidence in the Centers for Disease Control, 0, zip. I don't think anyone in this country should. But the head of that, or whatever his exact title is, Fauci, who I have no confidence in either, but is still treated as the Svengali of this. This gentleman said masks have no effect on this virus. He said that in private emails. That's what he thought. I don't see how that's changed, despite the public statements. The comments that were made earlier, one of the other women who's here said it better than I can. She talked about the N95 mask. I have no doubt that there can be surgical masks that are protective, but we're talking about kids. Kids are not going to wear these masks seriously. The paper masks that some of you have, by the way, are made with PFAS chemicals. And Bill, you know what I'm talking about because I stood up on the floor of the house and talked about it. Those masks are dangerous for you. You're inhaling really toxic chemicals. And a lot of these kids are wearing masks like that. Those should be banned, frankly. Anyway, it's not just that's just a chemical. I don't digress. The point is those are not healthy for you. There's a lot of ill effects. And my point is any decision you make is going to have trade-offs. And you know, I have not seen any evidence to suggest that masking of children actually does anything. One of the gentlemen, former teacher over here, mentioned the Duke study. The Duke study had no control group. So it's a useless study. They went out and they studied every district in North Carolina where the policy was the same. So how does that prove anything? I was reading today about a comparison in Florida, by the way. There were 67 districts in Florida, 40, I forget it was 40 and 27. I forget, 40 of them had a mask mandate or didn't, and 27 had the opposite. Showed no statistical variance. This is over the last school year. So I would suggest to you the evidence suggests this masking does not work. It does not really accomplish much of anything. Maybe I'm wrong. Other people can argue that's fine. The point is there are trade-offs to doing this. And you know that, and you've heard some of those. I'm not going to repeat them. But every decision you make has a trade-off. And I would submit to you that the trade-off in this case is to not do a mandate. The second thing I'd like to add, and this is a much bigger point, and someone said it earlier, right before we went to the Zoom, said it much better than I can. And it's a broader issue when it comes to COVID. When does this end? When does it end? Because COVID is not ever going away. It's a coronavirus. It's endemic. And all that really matters at this point, I don't care about tests. I don't care about positivity. I don't care about contact traces. This is my personal opinion. I don't care about any of that. I care about hospitalization and death. And there's nothing to suggest that we are going through anything remotely close to what happened last year. It may be a little worse now than it was a month ago, or probably a little better in a month than it was now. But this is never going away. We need to return to normal as a society as quickly as possible. And if you implement a mask policy now, mandatory mask policy now, when is it going to change? Next month? November? Why? Someone asked what the metrics are. I don't know. And you may have studied this more than I have. I respect the decision you make, whatever it is. But you've got to make a decision. If you're going to mandate a mask policy, the only way you're going to get it to convince people who are opposed to it is to show actual scientific metrics and data to explain why you're doing it and what the criteria are for revoking it. That's my advice for what it's worth. I hope you do not institute a mandatory mask policy, but if you do, please justify it in a way that the people in this room who are opposed to it can accept it. Because if they don't, it's going to get ugly in this town.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we have a student on Zoom.
You have a what?
A student on Zoom to speak.
Okay, go ahead. 2 minutes, please.
Ethan?
Sorry, I'm just sorry that I don't have a camera. I hadn't been expecting to speak, so I joined on my computer that doesn't have a camera. I just wanted to say I'm a student. I'm Ethan Dano. I'm a student who's going into my senior year at the North Smithfield High School. And I just wanted to comment that I agree with a parent who spoke earlier that this pandemic has had a major impact on the mental health of students. However, I am speaking from my personal experience here. I personally would argue that for myself and for the friends that I have spoken with, it was a much bigger issue to have to be stuck online, really not seeing anyone in person, than it was to wear a mask. And I personally would argue that I would much rather go to school 5 days a week and wear a mask in school than have to be stuck online once again, because that was what had the major impact on my mental health. It was not having to wear a mask in school, because it's really not that big of a deal to me personally. That's just my 2 cents that I just wanted to add in. Thank you.
Thank you. Eli Hernandez.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Please bear with me. My accent is really difficult. I don't have subtitles, so please bear with me. And to make things worse, I only have 2 minutes. I'm also Jewish. It took us 40 years to leave the wilderness, so let's see how that happened. I don't know why we're here in the first place, let's be honest. Because the last email that I got says that it was going to be up to the parents. It was going to be up to the parents. That was the last email that I got. And then I remember there's not a mask mandate in the state. So how can the school committee enforce a policy when there's not a mask mandate? And I hear a lot of teachers complaining and they're afraid, they're scared. You know, I saw this teacher commented on Facebook that she's mandating or voting for universal masking because she's afraid of dying. Girl, you're in the wrong career. You are basically inside of a box full of bacteria. It's like asking an officer that you're gonna be a cop. Great. Guess what? You might get shot. Oh, I didn't sign up for that. You are in a room full of bacteria. And I don't know if you remember this, but let's be honest. Let's go over the numbers a little bit. What happened with the flu last year? Miraculously, it disappeared. I guess Hashem did a miracle because there was not a single death of flu in 2020. You know why? Because the PCR tests are not reliable. In Israel, they stopped using it last year. In Portugal, they're no longer using it. The FDA even admitted that by December of this year, they're going to stop using it because it's not reliable, because they don't know how to differentiate, follow me, between a flu symptom or COVID. You see what I'm saying? So I have 5 children. I have been living in Rhode Island for the past 32 years, in North Smithfield for the past 11. And the reason why my wife and I decided to move to North Smithfield is because of the school. You guys got good values, good principles. You are like the set apart from the set apart. And now you're flipping on me. And I'm having a problem with that. And yes, I might be having a tantrum. But you want to know why? Because those are my kids. Melek, Levi, Hadassah, Hoshiana, Hannah. They're all my kids, not yours. It's my responsibility, not yours. So please, leave it up to the parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Ronnie Canonian?
I'm definitely not as good at speaking in front of people as that man, so bear with me a second. So my name is Ronnie Canoyan. I have lived in town since I was a kid. I moved away for a little bit, but my husband and I came back here. He grew up here too. Canoyan's my kids are 4th generation in this town. And I'm up here not talk about science. I'm a marketer. I do Facebook advertising for a living, so I don't really know any about that. But what I know is that in November, when I get to the ballot box and vote for the people who are sitting here, I do so because I expect them to listen to me and to all these people behind me, everybody. I think that I do that as a parent. I listen to my kids. I have a 7-year-old. He's going into 2nd grade, Nathan. He hates wearing masks. And I listen to that. He didn't want to go to school because he had to wear a mask. He didn't want to get on the bus because of it. And I don't give him everything he wants. So I understand that. We can't listen to everything our kids say. We have to watch them and learn from them. Well, what I learned from and listened about my son over the year that he was wearing a mask every day is he was chewing on it. And he would come home dripping in saliva. Or he came home with somebody else's mask, because that's the fun thing to do when you're 7, is trade with somebody else, which really protected him from everything. But I think most importantly, what I'm really nervous about is my kids didn't get sick. My kids did not get sick. They didn't get COVID, but they didn't get a cough. They didn't get the flu. They didn't get a cold. They didn't get anything. And I'm really nervous about that, because as a 7-year-old that doesn't get a germ, how is he going to be an 8-year-old that can now get exposed to things? I don't want my kids, because I'm going to have 2 in the district this year, 2 weeks from now. I don't want them to have long-term effects of not getting germs. They need germs.
They need to play all summer. I had them in public parks. I wasn't telling them not to lick that pole because they need that. They need to be able to converse and cough on kids. And I know it sounds dirty and gross, but that's what kids are. They're dirty and gross, and that's how they build up their immune system. That's how they can really get through this kind of pandemic, is start building up an immune system to it. Because if that's where we're gonna go, where the end is, it's kids starting to get immunity to this over time with antibodies. And if we don't start now and we keep them masked and we keep doing this and we don't have an end date and we just keep going, we're never gonna get away with it. They need to build immunity. They need to do it now when they're least affected. And we need to have parental choice for that. Because if some people don't want their kids to not have a mask, that's their choice. My choice is I would like my kids to go and breathe free, get some germs, and start living their lives.
Thank you. So I'm going to close public comment, and we're going to talk about this among ourselves. Please, I would ask that you not interrupt while we're trying to deliberate. I mean, I have a statement. I don't know if anybody else does. Do you want me to start with that? Do you want me to ask for a motion? You tell me. Okay.
I actually have a statement.
Sure, go ahead.
I actually cannot think of any other topic in my many years, and there have been many years that I have been in the school committee. I can't think of a topic that has had such opposing points of view, or actually such vitriol, and I'm sad to say, such rudeness here tonight. I honestly can't believe that this is the citizenry of North Smithfield. As it has progressed, we on the school committee have heard every argument from both sides. From we are abusing our authority, we are pandering to pressure, we are taking away parents' rights, we're playing politics, we're playing God from those who do not want a mask mandate, to simply do what's right for our children from those who do want a mask mandate. And there's no way that we can please everybody or anybody at this point in time from listening to this tonight. I want you to know that I have done my own thinking. I've made up my own mind. No one has coerced me or forced me or tried to persuade me to make up my mind. I'm following my conscience, as someone here said tonight. Please know that I feel very strongly about this. I have listened to everything from everyone who is here tonight, and I have also listened to those who are not here tonight. Even though we did the best job that we possibly could last year of educating our students, we know that it was not ideal. We want to start this school year with full in-person learning, and in order to do that, we must protect the health of our students and the health of all those around them so as to limit the need to quarantine. It's as simple as that in my mind. I am co-chair of the school department's Health and Wellness Committee, and our mission is to provide a healthy learning environment for our students. As a school committee member, it is my responsibility to make decisions based on what I think is best for our students. And as a grandmother with children in this school system, I want my grandchildren and your grandchildren protected at all costs. This is a decision that cannot be made based on emotions or politics or infringement of rights, but rather on science and data and what we know as of this minute. And what we know is that the Delta variant is a game changer, worlds apart from what we knew a month ago. You do not want this virus because it is dangerous. It is more infectious to children than the original COVID virus, and it spreads more rapidly with the potential for additional risks and long-term effects on our children's health. Look what's happening to the children in Florida and Texas right now. That should be enough of a reason alone to mandate masks, and it's scary. The only way to fight this virus and still maintain our commitment to in-person learning is to get vaccinated if eligible. And because some people choose not to do that, universal masking is our only line of defense to protect the unvaccinated and reduce the transmission of this virus. The United States, as of Friday, was showing the largest increase in COVID cases in the world, yet we have the greatest availability of the vaccine. And this makes no sense to me whatsoever. When the superintendent sent out information in early August about the start of school, he stated that the guidelines at that point were a snapshot in time, changeable as we learned more, and circumstances have changed. The virus is more dangerous and we have to protect our population. And the best way to move forward as a school system and as a community is to have all of our kids back in school, learning together with masks covering their germs. And we have no blueprint for this virus, and we do not know when or how or if it is ever going to end. I would rather mandate masks now and back off in the future when the situation improves versus making masks optional and having to ramp up our efforts to contain the virus as it spreads. Mandating masks for all students is our opportunity to be proactive rather than reactive. And it's the only decision that I can support right now. However, I would expect that we would reevaluate as circumstances change, but continue to do what is safest for our students. That's
Thank
my
you, Mrs.
statement.
Mayor. Let me start by saying that this is a very difficult decision. I've heard from neighbors, constituents, and close friends making arguments on both sides. And I respect all of their positions. No matter what side you're on, this will be challenging. This is both a community and a personal decision for me, as I have 3 children in North Smithfield. The sole reason I am here is to make this the best school district it can be. And I believe that we, as a committee, have proven that over the years. I do not think that there is any question, and we heard this a lot, that the pandemic hurt a lot of our children educationally, mentally, and in ways we may not know for years or may not ever know. Thoughts of suicide increased from 10.7% to 25.5% in young adults from 2018 to August 2020. Mental health cases are way up in children. Drugs and alcohol usage are up. We need to get the children back to normalcy as soon as we can to allow our children to grow. I do not believe COVID is going anywhere. We need long-term solutions. There is no disagreement here, or probably from anyone, that we will do everything we can to protect children. For example, we upgraded our HVAC system. We're using distancing, washing hands, stable pods, wearing masks, and assisting parents in getting vaccinations. According to the Department of Education, 95% of school-age children who contracted COVID contracted it from outside the schools. We need to focus both inside and outside the schools. At this time, the CDC, Governor, Department of Education, or Department of Health have not acted. This is where I fall short of mandating masks. Children are affected differently by wearing masks. Children with sensory issues, anxiety, special needs, or for other reasons. This must be the choice of the parent. I do not believe one size fits all. I am not sure where the mask mandate became the line in the sand. Are there alternatives? Is there something else we can do? I've had good conversations with the superintendent about having more classes outside. I know that's a small issue, but it's something that we need to think about. We need to think outside the box. I do not believe that this conversation should begin with masks or end with masks. Just lost my place. And I don't know, to be honest with you, what strongly recommends would mean to the school. So does that mean that 5 kids will wear masks or 5 kids won't wear masks? Because that makes a big difference. I want to just give a couple of quotes from some superintendents from around us. One of the, and Mr. Galano, you're going to like what I say here. One of the things we're really going to have to look at is how well you are able to mandate everybody to wear a mask. How are you going to make sure that a student comes in and refuses to wear a mask, or a family says they're not wearing a mask? We're not going to send them home. We're not going to deny them an education. Policing is going to be a challenge. That's from the superintendent of Woonsocket. Superintendent in Cranston, when it comes time to ask people to do something they've been kind of freed from for several months, the kids are out doing sports, going to the beach, going to a camp, and doing all these things with masks, and asking them to come back and put on a mask will be a challenge. I further hope we can find a solution to early learning teachers on wearing masks who are vaccinated. You know, I spoke to the superintendent about clear masks, but I'm told that they don't work. Whatever the vote today, we, as a committee, will monitor the situation and be prepared to call a special meeting at any time to address any situation. I will give you that, my commitment. But at this point, I do not support a mask mandate. Thank you.
So hi, for those of you, you're absolutely right. I do not have a child in the school, but I did have 3 children in the schools. My last graduated just over a year ago, and she lost her last 3 months because she was in a mental hospital because of the COVID situation and because she couldn't handle the distance learning. So I do understand this, and it is very, very close to my heart. I've been listening to what's happening out on social media. I've gotten so many emails from people. I'm glad you took the little hand, voice of how many people feel one way, but we didn't get that on the Zoom call, so we really don't know what we probably should have taken a poll or something. I think that would have, but I'm just saying, okay? So I just wanted to make a few points before we move on. The first is, we are public servants. We don't serve in this role because we have children in the system. We serve because we want to improve all schools for all students. 2, as school committee members, the health and safety of students is our concern. According to Rhode Island law, it is our duty to address the health and wellness of students and employees. Our responsibility is solely to the welfare of each and every student, and we take that role very seriously. 3, I know you keep saying it, but this is not political. It is not political for me. This is about the health and safety of each and every student. Nothing more, nothing less. 4, funny, Jean, we didn't talk, but I swear I was not coerced or pushed into this decision. I have my own brain and I do my own research. I follow the science and the trends. 5, the single most important thing we can do is to get all students back to school safely every day. As of today, students and teachers across 14 states are already quarantining. We must do everything we possibly can to prevent that from happening here because our students have missed enough in-person learning already. The safest way to do that is to require masks. We don't want to do it. Nobody wants to do it. Of course, there will and should be exceptions. Let's get our students back to school every day. It's where they belong and it's what they deserve. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So first, I just want to acknowledge how emotional this is on both sides. Prior to this evening, I've received over 120 now emails and text messages from families who live in North Smithfield on both sides of the aisle. Overwhelmingly, though, I should say that the consensus has been in favor of universal masking. That does not mean that the people who are here tonight or who have reached out, who are opposed to masking, have their hearts in the wrong place. They don't. They don't. The people who are here tonight to talk about no masking, they care about their kids and they care about their community just as much as the folks who want the masking. And just, yeah, there's been anger and there's been all sorts of stuff tonight and over the weekend, and I get it. But after tonight, no matter what the vote is, I just hope we don't lose sight of the fact that we are a community, we can disagree, and then we can come together again. So, you know, people have had to watch the better part of the last 2 years slip away because of COVID. It's brutal. I hate it. It's natural to be sick and tired of it. I hate wearing a mask. I don't want to wear a mask. You don't want to wear a mask. I get it. But just because I'm sick and tired of it doesn't mean it goes away. In states which have been pushing away from masking mandates, entire districts have been shutting down due to the virus. So that's district, and from July 21st, the day after our last school committee meeting until yesterday, the average number of COVID cases in Providence County has jumped from 25 per day to 125 per day. We are seeing an increase. We are seeing districts close in states like Arizona, Georgia, Mississippi, and Texas. Another district in Texas just closed this morning. Whatever we might think about masking, I think that most of us can agree that the greater impact on student learning and experience will be if we have to return to distance learning. Every argument against masking that I have heard here tonight, be it an impact on education, anxiety, depression, isolation, and so on, will all be magnified by distance learning. And I'm not making that up, folks, because a lot of the same people who are here tonight saying no masks were the same people coming to meetings last year saying no distance learning. We don't want to go back to distance learning either. But the Delta variant has spread rapidly throughout this country. Now we're up to, what, 100,000 cases nationwide per day? It's crazy. And knowing what we know, that the Delta variant is more contagious, that it's spreading rapidly, that it is still the COVID virus, which has killed more than 600,000 people nationwide. And now knowing that our town has a lower vaccination rate than most other towns in the state, it's unconscionable that we don't do something to protect our kids, especially the kids under 12, who go to school every day in the elementary school and the middle school, and who didn't have the choice or the chance to be vaccinated. For those older kids at middle school, you're right, it's not fair. It's not fair that these kids did everything that we asked them again and again and again, and the goalposts kept getting moved. And now we have to ask them to do this too. It's not fair. But after everything that's happened and after everything that is happening, yes, we have to do this too. Now, I have a lot of faith in the North Smithfield students. I have a lot more faith in some of the people in this room, apparently. I know that when the older students in town, the kids who are in the 7th and 8th grade, the kids who are in the high school, when they are asked to mask up to help protect the kids who are younger than them or who haven't gotten vaccinated or who can't get vaccinated, when they're asked to put the safety of others before their own personal comfort and convenience, yes, I believe in our North Smithfield students. I think they're going to stand up for their younger peers and their younger neighbors and their younger classmates. Now, I don't speak for the rest of the committee, honest to God, we didn't talk before any of this. I have no idea how it's going to happen in terms of a vote. We have a couple of votes to make on this tonight. Oh no, I'll admit that forthright. I decided on Sunday, I am going to vote for universal masking. I don't apologize for that. And by the way, I don't care. I don't care. I'd rather lose this election coming up than have one kid get COVID. Elections don't matter to me, man. Kids matter to me. So go ahead, vote me out. It'll be worth it. Good. Good. It'll be worth it. Because if I can stop one kid from getting sick, that's what matters. Anyway. We don't want kids getting sick, folks. And we don't want to get back to distance learning. We want to get back to normal as soon as possible. This is the way for us to get back in person now and have the districts work out the flow of the classrooms in the schools. And this isn't an open-ended thing. You're right, it's not fair we have to decide this either. Honest to God, governor's office has failed us here. The governor should have stepped up and put something statewide that all of us can follow. And now we have districts who are doing one thing or the other. It's not fair, but this is where we're at. I want to vote for a 30-day mandate because there are questions as a district we need to work out. And that's okay. We need to get to work from minute one to get to the least restrictive learning environment. So let's give our district a fighting chance to do that.
So I'd ask that you let us deliberate among ourselves. Mr. Connell? Okay. Mr. Jones, you have a motion?
I have a few motions.
Good.
All right. My first motion is to make an amendment to the face mask policy that we looked at in the last meeting. Specifically, Section 2, face coverings worn in public schools. The amendment is to strike the first 5 words, "It is strongly recommended that," making the first word "all," and then striking the next word "unvaccinated," making the first 2 words all individuals, and then inserting the word "shall." This will make the sentence read, "All individuals shall wear a face covering when entering a district facility or attending school." That's a motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded. Roll call, please.
Okay, I have a question on that.
Sure.
Just a question. Assume we pass that. I don't think we can, we don't really have are you going to address an enforcement policy or what the enforcement policy would be? Oh, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Roll call, please.
Chair Lombardi,
No.
Mrs. Mayo,
Yes.
Mrs. Vada, yes, Mr. Connell,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
My next motion is to amend Section 5, exigent circumstances, paragraph 2, line 2. Delete the words "which the superintendent" and, making that first sentence read, "in the event any mandatory order is issued in this regard, or in the event of an unanticipated change in circumstances," replace the word "and" with "the school committee determines it is necessary to immediately alter the district's response," and so on.
So that's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second it.
Would you just repeat that again, please, the way you,
Basically, what I want to do with this section is not put the superintendent in charge of determining what constitutes a change in this policy. We're the elected body. We should be the ones who make the decision on whether or not we need to change the masking policy.
okay, so would you just read the?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in the event any mandatory order is issued in this regard, or in the event of an unanticipated change in circumstances, The school committee will determine, that's the best way to rephrase it. It is necessary to immediately alter the district's response, and notwithstanding this policy, the superintendent is directed to forthwith amend the district's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and to conform with all such orders.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions? Roll call, please.
Chair Lombardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Mayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Vada?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. Mr. Chair, my final motion on this matter is to direct the superintendent and to direct the North Smithfield Public School Department to institute a 30-day, hold on, please, to order a universal masking mandate for North Smithfield Elementary School, North Smithfield Middle School, and North Smithfield High School, effective from midnight on August 31st, 2021, until 11:59. When's the first day of school? The 1st of September? 31st. Yeah, so from midnight on August 31st, 2021, until 11:59 p.m. on September 30th, 2021. It's a motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Not midnight. Midnight, 31st.
Oh, school starts, oh, I see.
Yeah,
So I'd like to amend that to midnight on August 30th until 11:59 p.m. on September 30th, 2021.
Before I ask for a second, is that? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It would be a 30
Any
day,
fur-
it'd be a 30 day, it would be 30, exactly 30 days.
Right.
30
Any,
days, we have to take this back up at our next meeting.
okay.
Okay.
Does anybody want to have a,
I was confused about the 30 days because I didn't know how that was going to fall into.
Right. My thought on this is that we do not want to make this an open-ended mandate. We have questions we have to answer. We have policies that we need to define better. And so the superintendent, working in conjunction with his department heads and the principals, will be able to develop these policies over the next few weeks, and we can see them implemented and whether or not they're working for those first 30 days. But at our next school committee meeting, we will have to take this back up to see if we need to extend it or not.
so does it automatically lapse in 30
Yeah.
days?
Yes, if we decide not to extend it, this automatically sunsets in 30 days.
Okay. There's a motion. There was a second? Okay, roll call, please.
Chair Lombardi?
No.
Mrs. Mayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Vada?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
So for the record, the policy is the first reading. And we'll have to take up a second reading to make that a policy. All right, so let's go to the, does anybody have any further questions? Yes, please. 5 minutes. Hathaway waited through this whole ordeal just to make, to be appointed. So thank you very much. You really didn't have to.
Gianna, where are you? Come here, come up here. There we go. So I met Gianna, about 3 weeks ago. You interviewed, and she came into the office, and oh my goodness, so happy, so enthusiastic. And she's still happy and enthusiastic. So it's.
All right, well, thank you. These are all just, it's for informational purposes only.
I just
Is
want to
it-
actually, if I could just acknowledge a few, I can't do everybody,
Okay.
but Dylan Bannister is joining us as a full-time technician now. He's a North Smithfield High School graduate. He
Great.
interned with us. He worked part-time with us while he's doing his degree,
Great.
and we're thrilled to have him on full-time. I want to, thank Elise Felker. She was with us as a music teacher, wonderful, at the middle school on a 0.8 position. We're able to make her into a 1.0. And Jeffrey McCarry. I want to acknowledge him. He is our new vocational teacher at the high school. So this was the program that we had wanted to create. It's not a CTE yet, but this is more practical skills, carpentry, plumbing, electrical. He comes to us with 25 years experience. He is certified that he can have our students receive their OSHA certifications, and he is actually fully capable of starting a CTE. He checks all the right boxes, and we were just so fortunate to find him and have him come on board. So,
Thank you, Superintendent. I guess one more item before we adjourn is that I'm away next week. I'm wondering if we could have a quick meeting for second passage, if the committee thinks it's necessary, on the face mask policy. So there's two readings.
Right.
So
When are you talking?
this is the first reading because
Right.
it's changed.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking of calling a meeting Friday night and having a second reading. So just to pass it, this will be the only thing on the agenda. Or do you want?
This coming Friday?
Yes.
I came back.
Wait, let me just. So, I mean, unless somebody believes here that Paul's motion overrides it, I don't know. I think.
That might be a question.
Yeah, or I'm just saying, we got the policy in place. Let's get the second passage as soon as possible so that the superintendent doesn't go into the school year not knowing what the policy is. Is that okay? Or
yeah, I'm looking at Jean because she just drove here from her vacation.
oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, but you know what? It should be, there's not going to be any public comment. They've already had public comment. We're just going to come in, 2 minutes and vote it through.
I'll meet that.
No?
This is 30
You don't have to,
I don't have
if you're
to be
away,
here?
no.
Well, okay.
Well, I mean, everybody takes a vacation, but I mean, if you'd rather do it a different day,
But you're leaving.
now I'm leaving the following week, but if you want to, have a second passage the following week, you don't need my vote on it, but
So when is the date for the second step?
I think it should be as soon as possible, but so that's why I'm saying Friday, because we couldn't do it Thursday. We would have a 48-hour violation.
Well, okay, so quick poll. So Jean, are you going to be back on vacation on Friday?
Yes, I'm actually heading back first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay. Bill, what about you? I have to look at my calendar.
Paul,
Jim, why
would you pull your mic forward so we can get all this?
Mr. Chair, why don't we push it off till next week?
Okay.
All right.
I'm away, but that's okay. You can have a meeting without me. The
Okay.
Vice Chair can call the meeting. You can call the meeting.
The vice chair's meetings are usually very quick.
I know.
remember this, yes.
Oh, it's only a 2-minute meeting.
She's gonna break your record. Okay.
I feel badly, but I would rather not come back again for a 2-minute meeting.
No, I agree. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. So I guess just coordinate it with that. Huh?
Oh.
Or unless you want to call it now.
Well, how about while everyone's here, we set a date?
Okay.
I could do this Friday. I could do this Friday.
Yes. But shoot out a date. I'm not here, so.
Okay.
I can do next Monday or Thursday.
I wouldn't wait till Thursday. I don't mean to. I think you should do it because in the following week we're in school, right?
Bill, you can do Friday?
I can do this Friday, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I mean, you know what my vote would be, so that's.
Let's do this Friday.
Okay,
can do
that's
this
fine.
Friday.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
All right, Friday at 6 o'clock, good? 5, 6, you tell me.
Either's fine. I'll be on the road most of that day, so I can get here whenever.
Let's do it at 5. For example. All right, and hearing no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion been made. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We're adjourned.